The first thing this world gave me was cold coming up through my spine, and the second was somebody else's hunger. I was lying on a straw mat in the corner of a street with both hands clamped over my stomach, and my stomach was doing something I had genuinely never felt before. Not I skipped lunch hunger. This was hunger with an opinion. This was hunger that had been living in this body for a long time and considered me the guest. I sat up so fast I nearly went over sideways. Blue stone slabs, narrow alleys crossing each other at angles no city planner ever signed off on, wooden buildings stacked and staggered, roofs leaning into each other like they were sharing gossip. Somewhere behind me a rooster was losing an argument with another rooster. 12 hours earlier, I had been in my apartment. I want that on the record. Friday night, gaming with my friends until midnight, then lying in bed reading a novel with one eye already closed. 9 to 5 job. Clocked in on time, clocked out on time, never once worked overtime in my life. Enough money to eat barbecue and drink beer with friends, hit the gym twice a week, and hold long, detailed conversations that would not be appropriate for children. Then the memories arrived, which is a polite way of saying somebody poured a stranger's entire life into my skull without asking permission first. 13 years old, no parents, no home, no name anybody in this town could be bothered to use. A beggar. I had woken up as a beggar. And here is the thing you have to understand about me. I did not panic. I got excited. Because I read novels. I read a lot of novels, and everybody who has ever read one knows exactly what comes with a transmigration. It is not optional. It is practically written into the terms and conditions. You wake up in a strange world, you get a golden finger, a system, a cheat, an old man living in a ring who calls you brat and teaches you sword techniques. That is simply how this works. So I stood up on legs that felt like 2 damp noodles, walked out into the West Market as it opened for the day, and got to work. Is system there? I said. Hello, system. Nothing. System, I need to clock in. Nothing. Grandpa? Old immortal? Are you there? Hello? The West Market was filling up around me, merchants shouting, carts rolling, a whole city waking up. And in the corner of it stood a starving 13-year-old waving his arms at the sky and asking a piece of empty air to please respond. I checked my body. Both arms, both legs, back of the neck, forehead. I searched every rag I was wearing, and these were rags in the technical sense, meaning they had once been clothing and had since made other choices. Nothing. No ring, no pendant, no mysterious scroll, no tattoo glowing on my palm. My breathing started coming faster. That was the exact moment a woman walked past holding her little boy by the hand, pointed a finger straight at me, and said, Shaolei, you be a good boy and listen to your mother, or your mother will not want you anymore, and you will end up like this little beggar. The kid nodded so hard I thought his head would come off. Then he gripped her hand tighter and they walked away. I stood there for a while. Cool. Very cool. I want to be clear that I did not give up right then. I gave up about 4 hours later, after standing in that market until the sun moved, silently negotiating with a universe that had already hung up on me. There was no golden finger, or if there was one, it had not been activated, or it had been delivered to the wrong address, or the old immortal in charge of my file had gone on holiday. Fine, I told myself, fine. Even without a golden finger, I have 30 years of a modern education sitting in my head. I might not become a high official in this world, but I could absolutely become a merchant. What followed was 3 weeks of the universe methodically taking that sentence apart, word by word. I went to a counting house to be an accountant because I know mathematics that this world has genuinely not invented yet. I got as far as the doorway, where a clerk handed me a ledger and asked me to read the top line, and I discovered that I am illiterate. Completely. The characters in my head from my old life and the characters on that page were not the same characters. I was a man who could calculate compound interest and could not read the word for rice. I went to a blacksmith to be an apprentice. He looked at me the way you look at a chair that has been advertised as a horse. I was 13, 1.5 meters tall on a good day, and weighed roughly as much as the hammer. I went for an interview as a waiter at a restaurant. I did not reach the interview. I was removed from the vicinity of the door before I got through it by a man whose entire job appeared to be removing me from the vicinity of the door. So I inherited my predecessor's profession. I became a beggar, and then something happened that I still find genuinely funny in the way that a scar is funny years later. I got good at it. I started out disdainful, holding my bowl like it was a temporary arrangement. Within a month, I was more professional than the kid whose body I was wearing had ever been. I learned which streets fed you. I learned which hours the restaurants threw out food that was only slightly a war crime. I learned that if you sit down, you look pitiful, and if you lie down, you look dead, and dead does not earn. I ate what other people had already finished with. I still went to sleep hungry. And I was still despised, and I was still occasionally beaten, because in this world, a beggar is not a person having a hard time. A beggar is street furniture. I was 31 years old in my head, and I was fighting a stray dog for a bun. And then there was Elder Gao. Elder Gao was a resident of the West Market and a full-time drain on it. He had spent half his life being lazy, greedy, light-fingered, and catastrophically bad at gambling, in the sense that he gambled constantly and lost constantly, and considered this a temporary run of luck that had been ongoing for 2 decades. He was so deep in debt to the pawnhouse that when the repayment date came, he decided the smart move was to sneak out of town and hide for a few days. The pawnhouse men were already waiting outside his door. They tied him up, they walked him back, and when he stammered and could not produce a single copper, they beat his face into a shape faces do not usually take and decided to remove one of his hands as a teaching aid. Then the actual owner of the pawnhouse strolled in with a heavily painted woman on his arm. She glanced at the man under the cleaver the way you glance at furniture. Then she saw who it was, went white, and grabbed her companion by the sleeve. Father, no, no. The blade stopped in the air. Elder Gao kept his hand. Elder Gao also stopped owing the money. His daughter married the man who owned his debt, and Elder Gao walked out of that room having turned the worst afternoon of his life into a monthly allowance, which is a level of gambling return he had never once achieved at a table. After that, he became insufferable in a very specific way. He got 2 taels of silver a month from his son-in-law, which for a man who does not gamble is comfortable, and for a man who does is a rounding error. He did not dare ask for more, so on the way home one evening, he looked at the beggars along the street and the copper coins in their broken bowls, and he had an idea. A whisper from his daughter into her husband's ear got him 2 bodyguards, one tall, one short, both wide, and Elder Gao discovered his life's calling, which was that he could not touch the rich, but he could absolutely touch the poor. A beggar pulls in 12, maybe 20 copper on a good day. 10 beggars is 200. 200 copper a day, collected from people who have no family, no name, and no one to complain to. He came around after dark with his 2 men, and you paid, or you were driven off your corner by methods, and if you were stupid enough to argue about it, they broke something of yours, and you went back to work with it broken, because now you were his. I met Elder Gao for the first time on a night in late autumn. I had made 19 copper that day. 19. It was the best day I had ever had. I had been planning it for the entire afternoon. 8 copper for real food, actual hot food from an actual pot, and the rest hidden in the wall where I slept, because I had a plan, and the plan was that at 300 copper I could buy a padded coat, and with a padded coat I could survive the winter, and if I survived the winter I could keep going. I had the 19 copper in my fist when the tall one lifted me off the ground by the front of my rags. Elder Gao did not even look at me while he did it. He talked to the short one about a card game the entire time. He put his hand in mine and took the coins out of it finger by finger, the way you would clean something off a shoe, and while he was doing it, he was laughing at something the short one had said, and he never once looked at my face. That is the part I kept. Not the cold, not the hunger, the fact that he took my winter and did not consider it interesting enough to look at. They walked off. I sat back down. The temperature dropped that night the way it does in late autumn when the wind starts coming down the streets in one direction. I got into the corner I slept in, and I made myself as small as I could, and I waited for the shivering to stop, and after a while it did stop, which I understood even then was not the good news it felt like. So this is where I am going to die, I thought. In an alley, over 19 copper. Is this a punishment? Is this the bill for 31 years of eating barbecue and playing games and never once doing anything with my life? I am not reconciled, I thought. I am really, really not reconciled. And then I stopped thinking anything. Da. A carriage, black, painted with cloud patterns, came up the empty street with its wheels rattling on the stone. It slowed. It stopped beside a pile of rags in a corner that had recently been a person. The window opened a hand's width. A deep voice came out of it. Calm, not unkind, not kind either. The voice of a man reading the second to last item on a long list. Go down and see if he is still alive. Footsteps. A young man crouched down next to me, put 2 fingers against my throat, and turned back toward the carriage. Deacon Wang. He is still alive. There was a pause that I have thought about a genuinely unreasonable number of times since. Take him with you, the voice said. Whether he can pull through is up to him. And then the window closed, because the man had a schedule. I woke up in a woodshed, which after the alley felt like a suite. I was under an actual blanket. There was a wall on all 4 sides of me, and a roof. And the roof was doing the thing roofs are supposed to do, which is be between you and the sky. I lay there for a while running a full inventory. Fingers, present. Toes, present. Nose, present. Which had been genuinely in question. Then the door went squeak and daylight came in and hit me directly in the eyes. Awake? A man in black was standing in the doorway. If you are awake, come with me. He did not introduce himself. He did not ask my name. He turned and walked, and I understood that the correct response was to follow, which I did, on legs that had opinions about it. And then I got my first proper look at where I was. Rows of houses, attics, covered walkways going off in directions, Servants in gray moving fast with their arms full and none of them dawdling, and somewhere in the distance a sound I could not place yet, a rhythmic thudding like 100 people hitting something at the same time. We went into a hall. The man in black bowed. Deacon Wang, the person has been brought. And there he was, the voice from the carriage, attached to a face, 40s, neat trimmed beard, plain clothes, no jewelry, nothing on him that announced anything. He looked like a man who taught school and was good at it. This was the man who had decided in about 4 seconds that I would live. He glanced at me once, the way you check that a delivery is the right shape, and turned to the man in black. Tell him about our rules here. The man in black did not waste a syllable. Our Cangyun Sect is recruiting utility disciples, room and board provided. You will be responsible for miscellaneous tasks within the sect every day. Room and board. Appreciate that I had spent the previous 3 weeks conducting negotiations with a dog over a bun. After a full year of menial work, the skill transmission hall will teach you a martial art. Those with talent become outer sect disciples. Those without can try to become apprentices at the medicine hall or the weapon hall, or continue as utility disciples. Then Deacon Wang turned half away from me, put his hands behind his back, and said it to the wall rather than to me in a voice so quiet it was almost private. It is up to you to decide whether to stay or leave. I am willing to be a utility disciple. I did not think about it. There was nothing to think about. I had recently experienced being hungry 9 separate times in one day and not knowing where the 10th would come from, and I had recently experienced a man taking money out of my hand without looking at my face, and I was never doing either of those again. Deacon Wang nodded. He had known what I would say before he asked. Starve on the street or be a servant with a roof, and anybody with a functioning brain picks the roof. He waved his hand, and the man in black took me away to learn where things were, and that was it. That was the whole interview. I did not thank him. I did not get the chance. And at no point in that entire interview did anyone ask me my name. That turned out to matter later. That night, I lay on a communal bed with 6 other boys. I need to describe this bed. It was less a bed than a shared platform for the storage of teenagers. There was snoring in 3 different keys. There was somebody having an entire conversation in his sleep with a person who was not there. And there was a smell of feet that I would describe as structural, in the sense that if you removed it, the room might not stand up. I could not sleep. I lay with my hands under my head, staring at a ceiling I could barely see, and something in my chest came loose that had been screwed down tight for 3 weeks. Why is this dream not ending? How do I go back? My eyes went hot and then wet, and I let them, because it was dark and nobody was watching, and I lay there and cried like the 13-year-old I now legally was. And then I stopped and wiped my face with the back of my wrist and made myself a promise. I will live well, not just live, I will live well. Which is a very easy thing to say at night in a warm room. I had roughly 5 hours before the sect explained to me what it actually costs, because I had spent that whole day listening to the older servants talk while I pretended to be a small, quiet nobody, which I was extremely good at. This was the Cangyun Sect, one of only 2 schools in the entire Pangan County area, over 100 years old, and by local standards genuinely decent people, which I say because they were the ones who went out and cleared the bandits off the roads instead of being the bandits, which is apparently a real distinction here and not a given. Bandits, I was told, came in waves, like weather. Outsiders looked at a Cangyun disciple with respect. Actual respect, the kind that makes people step aside. I lay there and did the math. 1 year of hauling and scrubbing, then they teach me to fight. Then nobody lifts me off the ground by my shirt ever again. 1 year. I could do 1 year standing on my head. The next morning I found out the sect had a different unit of measurement, and it was not the year. It was the minute. I was awake before dawn. Quick wash, and then straight to the errands office to wait, because I had been told the tasks were handed out at first light, and I had decided that the first thing this place was ever going to learn about me was that I was early. I got the name of the man in black off another servant, Shu Wei. Everyone called him Senior Brother Shu, and he ran the utility disciples, which meant he ran my entire existence. I also got one other piece of information that morning, and it landed harder than I expected. It was Deacon Wang himself who had brought me back, not a servant sent out, not a patrol. The man in the carriage had stopped for me personally. I filed that away somewhere permanent. People kept arriving. The yard filled up. There were servants here who had been doing this for years, and they were greeting each other, joking, comfortable, the way people are when they know exactly how a day is going to go. Then there were the new ones, standing in a loose cluster in a corner, looking like they had been dropped there from a height. I stood on my own and listened, because listening is free, and I had nothing else to spend. Elder Shu, a tall thin one, was grinning. Guess how many get whipped today? No more than 5. The one called Shu spread his hand out flat. I say more than 5. Lot of new faces this batch. Bet you plenty are late. My heart did a small, unpleasant thing, Being late gets you whipped? For the record, this did not personally frighten me, because in my previous life, I clocked in on time for 8 straight years and was the kind of man who arrived 20 minutes early to a dinner rather than make anyone wait for him. My entire personality was punctuality. It was possibly my only marketable skill in either world. Senior brother Shu, somebody spotted him first and bowed fast. The yard went silent in about 1 second, not gradually, like a switch. Senior brother Shu walked up onto the platform, nodded once, took out a roster and started calling names. Zhou Kang. Arrive. Sun Ming. Arrive. Fan Lei. Nothing. Fan Lei. Nothing. Senior brother Shu looked out across all of us for exactly as long as it takes to breathe in. Then he made a mark on the roster with his pen, and something cold went across his eyes, and I understood that Fan Lei's day had already happened, and Fan Lei did not know yet. Huo Ming. Here. I said it loud, from the middle of the line, standing straight. He read out the tasks. He closed the roster. And then he looked up at us with a face like the beginning of winter, and every single person in that yard went rigid, and I mean the veterans too. We have a lot of new utility clerks lately. They have all been told when to gather here in the morning. 6 of them are still late today. Beat. Those who are late. Step forward. He took a whip off his belt with his right hand. 6 of them came out, walking badly. One of them was maybe 11 years old. Senior brother Shu walked down the line and gave each of them 1 lash, hard, and none of them screamed, because you learn fast around here that screaming is an additional expense. 6 muffled sounds. 6 boys standing very still afterward. 1 lash for being late once, 5 lashes for being late twice, 3 times, and you go down the mountain on your own. He said it at a completely normal speaking volume. Every person in that yard heard every word. Also, you 6 will finish your work today before you rest. Then he took the roster and left, and the yard broke apart, and everybody went to work, and I went with them, and my hands were not entirely steady. I noticed one thing on the way out though, and it is the thing that made me decide Senior brother Shu was not actually a monster. He assigned by hand. The new ones got the light work, cleaning, carrying tea and water, laundry, helping in the kitchen. The old hands got the real labor, water hauling, chopping wood up the mountain, weeding the medicine field. He whipped 6 children in the morning and then quietly made sure the newest ones did not get worked to death in the afternoon. This world is complicated. My job was the doorway, sweep the doorway. A few of us shared it. That was the entire task. By the end of the day, I could not straighten my back and both of my arms had stopped taking instructions. Because that is the other thing about being a beggar for 3 weeks. My brand new body could not sweep a floor. I was 13. I was thin in a way that is not a fashion, and I had been running on discarded rice for a month. But that night, I ate 4 cornbread buns. 4. No meat, nothing on them, just bread. Best meal of my life, both lives. And I lay down on the platform of teenagers with the snoring and the sleep talking and the structural foot smell, and I thought about the 6 boys and the whip and about a man in a carriage saying whether he can pull through is up to him, and I thought, all right, up to me. Understood. Senior brother Shu went easy on the new intake for exactly 1 month. I know it was 1 month because I counted. On the 31st day, my name came up next to water hauling, and after that, the rotation started, and 3 or 4 days a week, I was doing the work of a grown man with the body of a starved 13-year-old. The first week of that nearly finished me. I would get back to the room at night and lie down on the platform and then not move at all. Not because I was comfortable, but because moving had become a negotiation. Every part of me that could hurt was hurting, including parts I had not previously been introduced to. I did not finish my quota on my own that first week. I want to be honest about that. Somebody else finished it. His name was Feng Ji. He had arrived at Cangyun a few days after me and got put in the same room, and the difference between us was that I had been scraped off a street and he had been sent here by parents who could not feed all their children and had done the arithmetic. He was a village kid, built like a village kid, shoulders that had been carrying things since he was 7. The first time he took 2 of my buckets, he did not make a speech about it. He did not even really look at me. He just took them, walked them up the path, came back, and said, "Your face is a bad color." Then he did it the next day, and the day after. At some point in there, he noticed that the skinny kid who could not lift anything talked like the old scholars back in his village, in complete sentences, using words, and he decided this was extremely impressive and started calling me Brother Ming. I was 13. He was 13. I have no idea what he thought brother meant, and I never asked because I liked it. It took me several months to adapt, and then, slowly, I did. That first year rearranged me from the ground up. I got taller, almost 1.5 meters and still going. The gray came out of my face. My eyes stopped having that flat look that street kids get, and one morning I raised my arm to shift a beam and saw an actual muscle move under the skin, and I stood there staring at my own arm like an idiot for a solid 10 seconds. The sect also had a school. This is the part I still think about. Cangyun kept an old gentleman on the payroll to teach the servants to read and write. Free. Optional. After work, if you wanted it, you could go sit in a room and learn the written language of an entire world. Nearly everybody came the first week. Curiosity is cheap. By the third week, the room had emptied out. Reading is hard. You memorize 20 characters by rote, you come back the next day and you have 19, and the day after that you have 14, and there is no visible progress and no reward, and your arms already hurt, so people quit. They all had the same reasoning, and most of them said it out loud. I just want to wait out the year and learn a martial art and make a name for myself, which, yes. Young people everywhere in every world want to do the easiest possible thing for the biggest possible reward, and I say that as a man who spent his entire first life optimizing for exactly that. About 10 of us stuck with it, mostly the older servants, the ones in their 20s who had been here long enough to work out what literacy is actually worth in a place like this. And me, because I had one advantage that nobody else in that room had, and it was not talent. It was that in my previous life, I had spent 18 years being professionally taught how to memorize things. Spaced repetition, association, breaking a character into pieces and hanging each piece on a picture. That entire toolkit that I had used to pass exams, I no longer remembered the subject of. In 1 year, I learned to read this world, and that is how I found out what I had actually walked into, because the book said that martial arts here goes somewhere, that if you take it far enough, you can break a mountain with your fist, split a river with a sword, fly. I did not believe a word of it. Books lie in every world. Every civilization has that one guy writing about a hero who could jump over a house. Then I was sweeping the training ground one afternoon and I looked up and watched an instructor demonstrate a punch on a rock. The rock came apart, not cracked, came apart in pieces on the ground. I stood there with my broom and I felt something turn over in my chest, and for the first time since I had woken up on that mat, I wanted something that was not food. The year ran out on an autumn morning with a cool wind in it. They lined us up in the corner of the martial arts arena by height, in a square, and I have never in my life seen a group of teenagers stand that straight without being threatened. Every face in that formation was on fire, mine too, and I am supposedly the composed one. The man on the platform was built like a door, black close-fitting clothes, bronze skin, and eyes that went over us the way a butcher goes over a delivery. My name is Johan. I am a deacon of the Skill Transmission Hall. You may call me Deacon Joe or Instructor Joe. Then he laid out the terms, and the terms were not gentle. For the next month, I will teach you a martial art. You will then have 2 months. Those who reach the beginner stage become outer sect disciples. Those who do not reach the beginner stage within 2 months lack talent and will continue doing menial tasks. Nobody in that square breathed. Enough small talk. Today I teach you a martial art called Tongbei Quan, the long-arm fist. And then, to his credit, he actually sold it to us. Ancient lineage, offense and defense integrated. Fist and palm complement each other. Powerful, fierce, fast, and with endless variation. At its highest level, one man can take on 100. 50 starving teenagers heard the words 100 and I could feel the temperature of the square go up. The most important part of the long-arm fist is flexible wrists, which simply means wrist strength. Flexible wrists will decide whether you can generate power in every move you learn after this. The single palm strike, the strongest thing in this art, comes out of the wrist. He looked at the row of hopeful faces in front of him, and something in his own face softened for about half a second before he put it away. So today, before anything else, I teach you to flex your wrists. 2 movements. Shake the wrist, swing the wrist. Watch me carefully and practice along and ask me anything you do not understand. He slowed it right down so we could see it. The wrist is an axle, turning one way then the other. Palm loose, shake, shake. And on the third one the fist suddenly closes and snaps. Soft to hard. Loose to locked. That was the whole idea. 50 of us started doing it. Now, picture 50 village boys doing wrist exercises for the first time. Deacon Joe stood through all of it with a straight face, and I still do not know how. Most of them were doing an impression of the movement, arms in roughly the right place, wrists rotating in a vague, decorative way. The whole thing performed at about the intensity of somebody drying their hands. They looked correct. There was nothing inside them. A smaller and more committed group decided that the answer was force, and applied all of it immediately, and by the end of the first hour, we had produced several dislocated wrists. Day 1. The martial art had not yet started, and there were already casualties. I went and asked Deacon Joe about it because I had one real advantage over every other kid in that square, which was that I was 31, and I knew that I did not know anything, and what he told me changed the shape of the whole year for me. Flexible wrists is not the movement. Anyone can do the movement. It is doing the movement every day for a long time with real intent until your wrists have been rebuilt by it. Otherwise, you learn every move in the long arm fist and you cannot put any power into a single one of them, and you become what he called a showy display. A paper tiger, a thing that looks like a fighter until somebody hits it. The sky went dark on us before he was done for the day. To achieve something in martial arts, talent is one thing, but diligence is essential. Neither can be lacking. Whether you reach the beginner stage in 2 months depends entirely on your own effort. Then he sent us to rest. I did not go and practice more. I want that noted, because every single person in that square went off and practiced more. I went and sat on a wooden stool by the well, soaked a towel in cold water, and put it on my wrists, which by then were sore all the way up into the forearm, and I sat there while everyone else hammered away in the dark, not because I am disciplined, because I had been paying attention to the medical situation in this world, and the medical situation in this world is that if you genuinely damage something, it stays damaged. There is no surgeon. There is a man with herbs and an opinion. I had exactly one body left, and I was not going to blow the wrists off it on day 1 to impress a deacon. When I got back to the room, Feng Ji was already vibrating. Brother Ming, we finally learned a martial art. The day we make it big is almost here. He was doing the wrist shake while he said it, both wrists. The motion was weak, feeble, and approximately as threatening as a moth. Do not get excited yet, I said. For the next 2 months there is no beginner stage. There is just us, doing menial work, with slightly sorer arms. No, it is still early. I will reach the beginner stage in 2 months. Everyone in my village says I have the makings of a martial arts master. Everyone in his village said that. I did not have the heart. Then he licked his lips and got to the actual point. I heard Outer Sect disciples eat meat every day, and they get 3 taels of silver a month. Brother Ming, I have never seen that much money in my life. I did the currency conversion in my head because I had made a point of learning it early. 10 copper buys a working man his food for half a day. 3 taels of silver is 3,000 copper. 3 taels a month feeds a family of 3 for 2 or 3 months. For a kid from a village at the foot of a mountain, 3 taels of silver is not a salary, it is a category of person. Outer Sect disciples have to complete a mission for the sect every month, I said. They get dangerous ones. People die on them. All you are seeing is the money. He waved a hand at me, wrist still spinning. That is several months of my family's expenses. I want to be one right now. Then my parents would not have to work so hard. And that was the end of the argument because there is no argument against that. We talked a while longer, and then we slept, and he did the wrist shake in the dark for another 10 minutes, and I could hear it, and I did not say anything about it. The next morning, we got the actual moves. The long arm fist is called a fist art, and is roughly half palm. The strike is a palm, the point is a fist. Deacon Joe went down the list, and it went on longer than I expected. Single palm strike, groin strike, double palm strike, leading palm, clapping palm, stomping palm, bone slimming fist, flat fist, pointed fist, chop palm. Then he stopped listing and hit a wooden stake. The stake was as thick as my arm. It broke, and the top half went several meters across the yard and landed in the dirt. 50 teenagers made a sound. Deacon Joe's mouth went up at one corner for exactly as long as a smile costs, and then his face came back to normal, and I saw him do it, and I decided right then that I liked him more than I was supposed to. Ahem. All right, now I will teach you the moves. He taught it in pieces. Single palm strike, right palm pushes forward, left palm passes underneath the right and pushes forward. All the way down to the chop palm, right palm striking downward and forward from above, left hand covering, left and right alternating. Then he ran us through the whole set several times and got called away because a deacon has a job and 50 children learning to punch is only part of it, and he handed us over to an inner sect disciple to lead the drilling, senior brother Fan, patient in a way that is rare in a person who could kill you. If you asked him something stupid, he answered it as if it were not stupid, and I asked him a great many things over the next hour, and this is where I finally got the shape of the ladder I was standing at the bottom of. The first realm of a martial cultivator is the body tempering realm. 5 layers: skin refining, tendon transforming, bone forging, marrow cleansing, organ nourishing. You do not skip. You do them in order, and each one takes what it takes. And the whole realm is exactly what the name says. It is not about learning to fight. It is about rebuilding the container. Only a strong enough body can hold the kind of power that comes later, and only a body like iron can survive the advanced arts at all. A tall building needs a foundation or it falls over, is how senior brother Fan put it, and I could tell he had heard somebody older say it in exactly that tone. The long arm fist gets you as far as bone forging. After that, you need other techniques, and the sect does not hand those out to people like me. Senior brother Fan himself was at tendon transforming, which is layer 2 of 5, and when he punched a wooden stake, it did not break. It just kept a permanent record of his knuckles. That is layer 2. I spent the next 5 days practicing until my forearms burned and my wrists complained. And then, on the 5th evening, I finished a full set in the training ground, dropped my hands, and got ready to walk back to the room. A line of text went across my vision. Long arm fist, 1%. I want to tell you, I reacted like a hero. I reached out with one hand and tried to physically push it away, like a man swatting a bug, and my fingers went through it. I stood there for a long moment doing nothing at all. A gray panel had unfolded across my entire field of view, semi-transparent, like somebody had put clear sunglasses on my brain. It did not block anything. I could see the yard through it, and in sharply defined characters, sitting there in the air where only I could see them, were 3 lines. Name, Ho Ming. Life expectancy, 14 out of 58 years. Martial skill, long arm fist. Tier 1, 1%. Golden finger. I almost screamed out loud in the middle of a public training ground. I got it down to a noise. It is late, I thought. It is unbelievably late. It has been over a year, but it is here. A proficiency panel. That is what this was. I knew exactly what I was looking at because I had spent about 4,000 hours of my previous life staring at that exact interface in online games. Skill name, tier, percentage. Grind the skill, the number goes up, the number hits 100, the skill levels. Also, and I would like to flag this for the record, my life expectancy is 58 years, and this is the first anyone has mentioned it. Now, here is the thing I did next, and it is the only genuinely smart thing I did that entire year. I did not run back to the room to celebrate. I stayed exactly where I was, and I ran a test. Because a panel that shows you a number is worthless. A panel that tells you what moves the number is a machine, so I threw a set of the long arm fist deliberately badly, loose, lazy, arms flopping, the kind of set you throw when you are thinking about dinner. Deacon Joe happened to walk past the far side of the yard while I was doing it. He looked at me for 2 full seconds. "What the hell is that?" he said to nobody and shook his head and kept walking. The number did not move. I stood there and I could feel my heart going. Then I did it again. And this time, I put everything into it. Every move at full intent, exactly the way he had shown us, replaying his body in my head and trying to land my own body on top of it. Power through the back, through the shoulder, through the elbow, out to the fingertips, and something came up out of the bottom of my chest like warm water. I could suddenly feel the difference between my movement and his. Not think about it. Feel it, the way you feel a note being off. There was a gap between how I threw a single palm strike and how Deacon Joe threw one, and I knew what the gap was made of, and I knew how to close it. The panel came up. Long arm fist. Tier 1, 1.5%, 0.5%. I sat down on the ground. Practice properly, and the proficiency goes up. Proficiency going up gives you the insight. The insight makes the skill actually physically better. It is not a counter. It is a teacher that never gets tired and never has to go handle something at the skill transmission hall. And if I take this to 100%, I said out loud to an empty yard, do I break through to the 2nd tier? And does the 2nd tier mean skin refining? Nobody answered. I did not need anybody to answer. For a year, I had been a servant with a broom and a plan that depended entirely on being lucky enough to have talent. And I had never once been lucky, not at anything. Not once since I woke up on that mat. But this was not luck. This was a machine that converts effort into strength at a fixed exchange rate. I have spent my whole life doing repetitive tasks for a number that goes up. I have a certification in it. I started laughing. In the dark. Alone. In an empty training ground. It is just a grind, I thought. That is it. That is the whole cheat. It is just a grind. Deacon Joe came back around the other side of the yard at that exact moment and found the skinny kid he had watched throw a garbage set 10 minutes ago now sitting on the ground howling with laughter at nothing. "Has he gone stupid from practicing too much?" he said. Which brings me to the running problem I now had with Deacon Joe. For the next few days, he was at the training ground constantly, teaching, correcting, and being genuinely good at his job. He would explain something carefully the first time and reasonably the second time, and if you asked a third time, he would take the skin off you, and nobody ever laughed at the kid getting shouted at because every single one of us had been the kid getting shouted at. I stopped asking questions. Obviously, I had a teacher living in my eyeballs, and Deacon Joe started giving me a look. I noticed it on the 2nd day, then the 3rd. He would be walking past and his eyes would land on me, and there would be something in them that I could not read at all. I checked my face for dirt. I asked Feng Ji if there was something on it, and Feng Ji inspected me with tremendous seriousness and reported that my face was as clean as a pocket, which is a thing people say here and which I have chosen not to investigate. Deacon Joe looked at me again. Did I offend him? Have I offended a man who can break a wooden stake with the side of his hand? I stood there rubbing my chin, going back over every interaction, and then it hit me. I was the only one who had stopped asking him anything. Every other student in that yard was at him constantly. I had gone silent 5 days ago. From the outside, the skinny kid had stopped trying, so I walked over, nervously, bowed properly, and asked him a real question, because I still had one. Deacon Joe, how do I unleash the strongest power from the long-arm fist? His whole face changed. That is a good question. He actually turned toward me. The power originates in the back. It passes through the shoulder and the elbow and it reaches the fingertips. So it requires the back, the shoulder, and the elbow working together and a forceful extension, not simply stretching the arm out. He pointed at each one on his own body while he said it. Back, shoulder, elbow. I would like to say for the record that this single answer was worth more than the previous 3 days of practice. Then he put his hand on my shoulder. Of course, martial arts still requires talent as well as hard work. Do not put too much pressure on yourself. Oh, if martial arts does not work out for you, there are other things. You could become an apprentice at the medicine hall. I looked at him. He gave my shoulder an encouraging pat and walked off, having delivered what he clearly believed was a kindness. So that was the look. That is what the look was. That was 3 days of a professional instructor watching a hopeless case and working up the courage to gently suggest a career change. I gave him a polite smile, not an awkward one, a very calm, very polite, extremely well-constructed smile. Remember this moment, genuinely, hold on to it, because that throwaway consolation prize, that sad little pat on the shoulder, that is the door I eventually walked through, and it changed my entire life, and Deacon Joe has no idea to this day that he opened it. A few evenings later, he got us all in front of the platform with the sun going down behind him and made the terms official. We have taught you the moves and the training methods of the long arm fist. Most of you have them. None of you are at the beginner stage. He let that sit. You are at the beginner stage when you can lift a 200 jin stone weight, 200 jin, about 100 kilograms, off the ground, by hand. For the next 2 months, you will practice at the training ground for 2 hours a day. The rest of the time, you continue with your usual chores. I will come back and check your progress in 2 months. He stepped down off the platform and started walking away, and then said the last part over his shoulder without turning round. And even if you lack talent, it is all right. As long as you persevere, you will always reap something. Thank you for your guidance, Deacon Joe. 50 of us saluted his back. He raised one hand and waved without looking and kept walking into the dark. I walked into our room that night and stopped dead in the doorway. Feng Ji was lying flat on his back on the bed with his wrists pressed together, doing the shake, both hands, palms fluttering, and it looked exactly, precisely, 100% like the flower hand gesture, the one that went around every short video app in my old world for about 6 months. 2 wrists together, fingers doing that specific ripple. I had seen 10,000 people do that gesture. I had done it myself, once, badly, at a work party. I crossed that room in one stride. Odd changes, I said. Even remains the same. Nothing. He kept fluttering. I said it again, louder, standing right over him. Odd changes, even remains the same. Feng Jie sat up and looked at me with total sincerity. Brother Ming, what are you saying? I do not understand. I stepped back. I was just talking to myself. I went and sat down on my own bed. For about 4 seconds, I had genuinely believed there was another one of me in this world, somebody who had also woken up here with a whole life still stuck in his head, somebody I could sit down with and say the words 9 to 5, and Friday night, and my mother's cooking, and have them mean something. There was not. It was a coincidence. A farm boy shaking his wrists because a deacon told him to. I have been here over a year. I have a bed, a job, a friend, and a place I belong, and there is not one person in this entire world I can tell the truth to. I lay down facing the wall. Then I got up in the morning and went to work because self-pity is not a plan, and I am going to skip the part where I explain what a training montage is, because you know, and give you the only 2 things about the next 2 weeks that actually matter. The first thing is that the number moved fast. I trained the long arm fist in the morning before work and in the evening after it, not to destruction. That was a rule I made and kept. Cultivation is exactly like the gym in that everybody who has never done it thinks the answer is more, and everybody who has done it knows the answer is regularly. You do not run 20 kilometers on your first day. What you get from that is not fitness, it is a permanent limp. You go to the edge of what your body will take, and then you stop, and the body comes back bigger. Push past that every day, and you are not building potential, you are spending it. 5% a day, when I did it properly. 2 weeks in, I opened the panel while carrying a bucket in each hand, long arm fist, tier 1, 35%, 35, while working a full day, while sweeping and hauling and doing every rotten job senior brother Shu had on his list. The second thing that matters is why I did not take a single day off in those 2 weeks, and it is not the number. It is that I already knew what this world does to people who are not strong. I had heard it as a beggar in Cangyun County, sitting against a wall pretending to be furniture, listening to merchants talk. A wealthy man had brought a shipment of goods back along the road and been intercepted by bandits, and a lot of people had died getting that cargo the last 20 lie. That was not a story. That was market news. That was a thing men discussed in the same tone as the weather and the price of grain. And once, on the street, I ran into a cultivator in a bad mood and got into something with him that was not, to be extremely clear, a fight. A fight requires 2 participants. I got out of range at exactly the right second, and the thing that came off him afterward, the residual force, the wash of it, went past me close enough that I understood I had been about 4 heartbeats from being a stain. That is what strength means here. Not glory, not respect. It means that when you walk down a road, the road does not get to decide. 2 weeks later, before dawn, I opened the door, and cold came in at me like it had been waiting outside all night. It felt like late autumn back home, up north, the kind of morning where the air has an edge in it. I loosened my joints for a few minutes, and then I started the set. Punch, palm, wide sweeping movements, hard where it needs to be hard, soft where it needs to be soft, breathing coming faster. And that thing that happens sometimes when the body finally knows the movement well enough that you stop steering and just watch. Faster, faster. I finished the set and it hit me all at once. Something warm came up out of my middle and went out along every path in my body, into the arms, into the legs, into the fingers. My muscles started moving on their own, small twitches under the skin, like something was crawling under there, and the whole surface of me went hot and itching and prickling at the same time, and I could feel a new layer forming underneath the skin, not on it, under it. It took me a long time to come back to myself. Breakthrough, skin refining. The panel was already up when I remembered to look at it. Name, Huo Ming. Life expectancy, 14 out of 60 years. Martial skill, long arm fist. Tier 2, 1%. 60. It had been 58. I read that line about 6 times, standing in a cold yard in my underclothes, and then I sat down on a stone with my hands on my knees and thought about money. Every man I have ever known in either world spent money on the wrong thing. A bigger apartment, a better phone, a car that gets stuck in the same traffic as the cheap car. This world just handed me 2 years of being alive for 2 weeks of doing push-ups in a courtyard. I would like to know how far that goes. I would like to know that very much. Then I checked the rest of it because I am not made of poetry. Strength up, stamina up, defense up enormously. I rolled my sleeve back and pinched the skin of my forearm, and it did not feel like skin. It had a supple, leathery give to it, like I was wearing a very thin layer of armor that happened to be attached to me. I threw one punch at the air, and the air made a noise. Okay, I said, okay, this is a martial art. And on top of all of that, the tear-up dumped something into my head. Technique. How the power is generated, how the energy trains. Not words. Understanding. And with it sitting there, I could suddenly see the entire 2 months of long-arm fist I had already thrown, and see how badly I had been doing all of it. Obviously, I immediately tested it. I ran the whole set again with the new stuff in my head, and this time every move came out clean, fluid, and honestly pleasant to do. Sweat came up on my forehead and my back. I stopped, wiped my face, and opened the panel. Long-arm fist. Tier 2, 1.5%. 0.3. Not 0.5. 0.3. So the rate is not fixed. Sometimes you get more, sometimes you get less, and I have no idea yet what decides it. That is the first thing this machine has not told me. I filed it next to the life expectancy question. Now for the part where I started lying to everybody I knew. That night, I went to the martial arts arena, which I had been avoiding for weeks. There were still people out there training in the dark, and they deserve credit for it. 40 or 50 kids who had been hauling water since dawn were out there in the cold hitting the air, because for most of them, this was the only exit that would ever be offered. I went to a corner, and the first thing I did was throw a set of the long arm fist badly, in full view. Cover. Then I walked over to where the stone locks are kept and found the 200 Jin one. I squatted down, got both hands on the handles, set my back, and pulled. It came up with me, slowly, the whole way, until I was standing all the way up with 100 kilograms of shaped rock hanging off my hands, teeth locked, face going red, veins standing out along both forearms. A few seconds. Then I put it down gently, because dropping it makes a noise, and stood there breathing hard and grinning at the dark. Outer Sect disciple. Safe. 1 month early, and nobody was going to hear about it. Here is my reasoning, and I still think it holds up. I read a lot of novels in my old life, hundreds, and the thing that happens to the talented young disciple in every single one of them is the same thing. The sect notices him, the sect invests in him, and the sect starts handing him the missions it does not want to waste an ordinary body on. Then the other disciples notice him. Then he is getting challenged, getting talked about, getting quietly sabotaged by people whose faces he cannot pick out of a crowd. And if he gets big enough, a rival school decides he is a problem worth solving early and solves him. I was a 13-year-old former beggar with no family, no backing, no allies above me, and one secret that would get me killed if the wrong person understood what it was. So, gray. Completely, comprehensively gray. I would break through late, in public, badly, at the last possible moment, and be the boy who scraped in, which had a side effect I did not plan. Feng Ji decided I had given up. He had been asking me to come train at the arena with him for weeks, and I had said no every time. He had seen me practicing alone in the yard behind our block, and in his village logic, practicing alone without a senior to correct you is not training, it is reinventing the wheel, and it might actually hurt you. Eventually, he stopped asking. The real reason I did not go to the arena was that it is loud, crowded, and full of teenage boys with new muscles and something to prove, and a crowded yard produces exactly one thing reliably, and it is a fight. I did not need advice. I had a teacher behind my eyes, and I did not need to be in a place where somebody might decide the quiet skinny kid needed a lesson. But that is not what it looked like from the outside. From the outside, it looked like Brother Ming had quietly stopped believing in himself. Because we shared a room, we shared a task list, and that week the task was water. 5 big vats, roughly 20 trips each, up a path, down a path, up a path, with the buckets on a pole across the shoulders, for most of a day. Feng Ji was walking behind me with his load, and he had been building up to something for about half an hour. Brother Ming. Several of us in this batch have already broken through to skin refining. My stride did not change at all. Really, I said, and I put actual amazement in my voice, which was easy because I have been lying since I was 31. They are really impressive. Very talented. We went another 20 steps. How is your training going? It is all right. I feel like I should be able to break through after practicing a while longer. I said that with the confidence of a man who had lifted 200 jin off the ground 3 nights ago and put it back down without making a sound. Brother Ming. He tried again. Why not come and practice with me at the arena? If you run into something you do not understand, you can ask one of the senior brothers. Never mind. I prefer practicing alone. He walked. He carried. He wiped his face on his sleeve. And then he said it. And he did not say it to me. He said it out into the air in front of him, like a man doing arithmetic he does not like the answer to. I feel like I need to break through too, but I do not have enough cultivation time each day. I wonder if I can make it before the deadline. And there it was, because I had seen him train. His form was fine. His body was better than mine had ever been. The problem was not talent, and it was not laziness, and it was not that he was slow, whatever he thinks about himself. The problem was that Feng Jie was doing all of his own work and part of mine. He had been doing it for a year. He had never once brought it up, and he was going to fail out of the only ladder he would ever be offered because of it, and he was going to go back to that village and tell his parents that he had no talent. You go to the arena 2 hours early every day, I said. I will do the rest of your work. He stopped walking. Brother Ming, then, what are you going to do? He was worried about my training. That is what that pause was. He was standing on a mountain path holding 40 kilos of water, 3 weeks from the assessment that decided the rest of his life, and he was doing the arithmetic on whether taking 2 hours a day would cost me my breakthrough. That is the decision, I said, and I made it a full stop. So that is how it went for the rest of that month. Every morning, Feng Jie went off to the arena 2 hours early, and I did his work and mine. And I would like to report that this was a great sacrifice. It was not. It was the single most productive month I had all year, because with him gone, I could stop pretending. Nobody was watching me haul anything. I did the work of 2 men at the pace of 2 men, and it turns out that with a skin-refining body and a full day of manual labor, you get a training effect that would have cost me actual money in my previous life. I had gone into skin refining barely able to lift 200 jin. By the end of that month, I could feel 250 in my hands with room left over. I paid the man back and got paid for it. That is not a sacrifice. That is a business. Winter came down on us. The sun was up and it had no warmth in it at all. Test day. They put us in the same spot in the arena, rows of us, and you could sort the entire batch by facial expression from 30 meters away. The ones who had broken through stood like javelins, chins up, shining. There is a specific look on the face of a 17-year-old who has just discovered that he is going to be somebody, and it is not humble. The ones who had not stood loose and crooked, and their faces had resentment in them, and jealousy, and something underneath both of those that was just fear, because they knew what the other side of this door looked like. It looked like carrying wood up a mountain for the next 30 years. Feng Jai and I were both smiling. He had broken through a week earlier. He came and found me in the yard that night to tell me, and he could not get the sentence out properly. I told him I had broken through 3 days ago, which was a lie by about 4 weeks. And I want to tell you what he did, because it is the reason I am telling this story at all. Feng Jie was happier about my breakthrough than he had been about his own, genuinely, measurably. He shouted. He hit me on the arm hard enough to hurt. Silence. Deacon Joe, from the platform. The arena went flat. We will now test the results of your 2 months of cultivation. Those whose names are called, come up. 3 stone weights up on the platform, 200 jin each, 3 at a time, so it moved fast. Get it off the ground for even a moment and you pass. Pass and you stand on the right. Fail and you stand on the left. There is no third pile. My name came up. I took a deep breath and walked up there slowly, both hands on the handle, and then I gave the performance of my life. I brought it up in stages, shaking, swaying from side to side like a man on the deck of a boat, letting my whole body wobble as if the thing were about to take me over with it. Absolutely disgraceful technique. Just the worst-looking successful lift anyone in the history of the Cangyun Sect has ever produced. 5 seconds. Then I set it down and let it go the last inch, so it landed with a bang, and stood there panting like I had run up the mountain. I heard it from the right-hand group behind me. Who is he? He broke through too. Skin refining. Have not seen him much at the training ground. Looks unfamiliar. He lives with Feng Jie. His name is Lin. Right. Kuo Ming. Kid. Deacon Joe was looking down at me while I got my breath back. When did you break through? Deacon Joe. I bowed. This disciple broke through 3 days ago. He looked at me for a second longer than he needed to. Oh, go on down. And that was it. I know exactly what went through his head too, because I had watched him think it in real time. He remembered the weak, listless kid throwing garbage sets in the yard. He had written breakthrough off as impossible for that kid. He was mildly, briefly surprised. And then he stopped caring, because an outer sect disciple is not a thing worth a deacon's attention. An inner sect was obviously out of the question for a boy like that. Perfect. Exactly what I ordered. Of the 50-odd of us who had come in as utility disciples a year ago, about half passed. Half. Those who passed, stay. Those who failed, go back. Deacon Joe said it flat, and in that one moment he was as cold as anything I have seen in this world, and the left-hand group turned around and walked out of the arena, and some of them were 11 years old, and that was their whole future decided in 5 seconds on a platform. The ones who stayed got the speech. First of all, congratulations on becoming outer sect disciples. You have taken the first step in cultivation. He clapped his hands twice. Encouragement, delivered on schedule. But becoming an outer sect disciple does not mean you can rest easy. The sect cannot support you forever. As outer sect disciples, you will complete the missions assigned to you every month. Nobody argued. Nobody even shifted. Because look at who was standing there. Sons of families too poor to feed them, and orphans. Getting into Cangyun at all was the luckiest thing that had ever happened to any of them, and the sect had fed them for a year and taught them to fight, and now it wanted work back, and that is not injustice. That is a contract. The terms, in full. 1 more month to settle into skin refining, then missions start, monthly allowance, meat at noon, and 1 free bowl of body-strengthening soup a week from the medicine refining hall, which speeds up cultivation. Brother Ming. Feng Jie came over with his bedding already rolled up in his arms, grinning like a lunatic. We are outer sect disciples. Yes. I let out a long, relieved breath that I did not actually need to let out. We both made it. It is great. We get meat every day at noon. That is the 3rd time he has mentioned the meat. We had to move out that afternoon because a new batch of utility disciples was already arriving to take our platform of teenagers, and somewhere down there a 13-year-old was being handed a broom and told about the whip. Outer sect disciples get individual rooms. Sit with that for a second. My own room, a door that closes with only me behind it. After a year of sleeping in a rack with 6 other people, and 3 weeks before that of sleeping in an alley. I picked one deep inside the block, at the back, next to a quiet stand of trees. The other kids picked rooms near the path and near each other. I picked the one where nobody would ever have a reason to walk past my window at night. Feng Jai took the room next door, which was not the plan but was not a problem. A hard bed, a wooden table, a stool, a small cabinet. I put my things in the cabinet, which took no time at all, and then I sat down on the bed and brought up the panel. Long arm fist. Tier 2, 34%, 34% in a month while doing 2 men's chores. At most 2 months to tendon transforming, I said to the empty room. No. Less. A little over 1. And then I heard myself and laughed, because a year ago the ceiling of my ambition had been 300 copper and a padded coat. Now, while I was arranging 4 objects in a cabinet and feeling like a landowner, a conversation was happening on the other side of the sect that was going to reach out and pick up my entire life and put it down somewhere else. I did not know about it for months. I am telling it to you now because otherwise the next part makes no sense. A few hundred meters to the right of the martial arts arena stands the medicine refining hall. Deep inside it, in a big quiet room, an old man stood up out of his chair, put his hands together, and bowed to the middle-aged man at the head of the table. Hallmaster Wang, I am getting old and my strength has been failing me lately. Please allow me to retire and enjoy my old age. The old man was Physician Shu. 20-odd years ago, Physician Shu had gone up into the mountains after herbs and got himself into something he was not coming back from, and a man he had never met pulled him out of it. They walked down the mountain together and discovered on the way that they were both serious about medicine and disagreed about it in interesting ways, which is the fastest friendship there is. The man who pulled him out was Hallmaster Wang. Wang invited him to Cangyun. Shu said he would go home and discuss it with his family. His family heard the number 20 taels of silver a month and discussed it for approximately 1 second, and Physician Shu came to Cangyun. Brother Shu, there is no need for such formality between us. Hallmaster Wang waved him back into his seat, and his face was doing something complicated. But if you go, the medicine hall has no physician, the disciples have no physician, the elders have no physician, and the pills needed for cultivation are already short. Even the pharmacies in the city are running dry. I do not have many years left to live. Physician Shu did not sit down. Now I only want to go home and play with my grandchildren and enjoy my family. I hope Hallmaster Wang will approve. There was a silence. Brother Shu, how about this? Stay in the sect 1 more year and see whether you can train a physician. After a year, trained or not, you may leave. All right, let us do as Hallmaster Wang says. The old man saluted again and walked slowly out of the hall, and Hallmaster Wang sat and watched him go. And there is a detail in that room that I think about more than I would like to. Hallmaster Wang is several years older than Physician Shu. Wang looked middle-aged, a bit of gray at the temples. Physician Shu had a face full of lines and a head of white hair and a walk that took its time. One difference between them, Wang is a martial artist. Shu tried when he first came to Cangyun and had no talent for it and gave it up and went back to medicine. 2 men, same road, 20 years, and one of them is going home to die and the other one is not old yet. That is not a metaphor in this world, that is a chart. Someone, Hallmaster Wang said, bring Wang Bo to me. A short while later, a young man walked in. Juju, did you call me? Physician Shu is planning to retire and go home. When he goes, our medicine hall loses a great deal. So I have asked him to stay another year and see whether he can train a physician. He put his cup down. Now I have a task for you. Find suitable candidates. Look through the utility disciples, the outer sect disciples, and the inner sect disciples. And remember, do not choose from wealthy families. It is best to select from poor families or orphans. Wang Bo poured himself a cup of tea. Juju, there are so many people. It is impossible to finish screening them all in a short time. I am giving you a week. Hallmaster Wang took a sip. Do not mess it up. Wang Bo drank his tea in one go, licked his lips, patted his own chest, and said, I understand, Juju. You can rest assured that I will handle things. Then he left very quickly, which is what people do when they have absolutely no intention of starting today. And the reason for the do not choose a rich kid rule is worth knowing, because it explains the economics of this entire place. Cangyun City has martial families, and martial families do not teach outsiders. Meanwhile, the city is full of merchants who made real money in trade and have no ability to protect any of it. They all hire bodyguards, and every single one of them lies awake wondering whether his bodyguards have noticed how much easier their lives would be if something happened to him. So the merchants send their sons to Cangyun to learn to fight so that the people guarding the family are the family. Those boys go straight into the inner sect. That costs at least 50 taels of silver a month, medicine not included, and anything beyond the basic long-arm fist costs extra. And the sect does not simply take the money either. They provide instructors. They assign a steward to walk the boy through it step by step. As long as the money keeps coming, they will supply every herb and pill the training needs. A serious part of Cangyun's income is rich teenagers. Senior management is delighted about this. But the formulas in the medicine hall, the prescriptions and the pill recipes are the crown jewels, and you do not hand those to a boy who will finish his training and go home to his father's shop. You hand them to somebody with nowhere else to go. Early winter, fine snow coming down in the morning. A few hundred meters from the outer sect quarters, in among the trees, there was a figure throwing punches, and his footwork was steady, and his arms from a distance looked long enough to belong on an ape. Single palm strike. Groin strike, double palm, flat fist, pointed fist, bone-piercing fist, every one of them with everything in it. At the end of the set, I slapped my palm against a tree trunk as thick as my thigh. The tree did not break. What happened was that the last of the dead yellow leaves came off the branches and floated down around me, which I am choosing to interpret as a mark of respect. I looked at my palm. Nothing. Not a scratch, not a red mark. Then I looked at the trunk. Also nothing. Fine. We are both fine. Nobody is impressed. That is skin refining though, and I had stopped noticing how much it had changed the daily texture of being alive. Before the breakthrough, I could take the skin off my forearm by rubbing it against a wall. Now I could put a knife against it and not open it. Panel. Long arm fist. Tier 2. 80%. Half a month at the outside to tendon transforming. 46% in 1 month, and I would love to take all the credit, but a good chunk of that is the body strengthening soup. That stuff is genuinely remarkable. You drink it, and about a minute later, heat comes up through you and settles in, and while you are in that state, everything you do trains harder. The proficiency climbs noticeably faster, and you can feel exactly why. I made the mistake of asking what it cost. 200 copper a bowl inside the sect. 500 copper outside. 500. That is 25 days of food for a working man. In a cup. That an outer sect disciple gets one of free every week and considers a minor perk. I have seen exorbitant profiteering before. I have never seen it wearing a robe and calling itself medicine. The other thing I did that month was build a gym, not a metaphor. I borrowed tools, went into the trees, and built training equipment out of wood and rope and rocks based on everything I could remember from a fairly ordinary commercial gym in a fairly ordinary city in another world. It was crude. Several pieces of it were genuinely dangerous. It worked. Because here is a thing this world has not figured out yet. They train the art. They do not train the body separately from the art. Nobody here does progressive overload. Nobody here does dedicated conditioning. They just do the forms, harder, forever, and call the results talent. By the end of that month, I could lift 400 jin. The assessment for becoming an outer sect disciple was 200. The sect mission starts tomorrow, I said to nobody, standing in the snow with my hands on my knees. I hope everything goes smoothly. I said that because I had spent a year listening to people talk. This world is not peaceful. Killing a man for money is not a crime here so much as an occupation with a seasonal element. And Cangyun loses disciples every single year on the missions, doing the work. Not many. Some. Enough that the number exists and everyone knows it. The next morning the winter sun came up with no warmth in it, and the martial arts arena was packed with outer sect disciples, over 100 of us, all there for the same thing. The affairs hall deacon came out, got up on the platform, opened his roster, and started dealing out the month. The board, so you understand the range. Guard a wealthy merchant. Guard a caravan against bandits. Gather herbs deep in the mountains. Procurement runs. Haul goods for the sect. Capture criminals. Nearly all of it carries some risk, and people at the bottom do not get to say no. To be fair to Cangyun, and I am inclined to be, they do great it. The genuinely dangerous work does not go out with a pack of teenagers. It goes out led by intersect disciples or by seniors from the halls. They are not throwing bodies at problems. They are just also not pretending the work is safe. My name came up, and I got a soft one. Escort a shipment of medicinal herbs from the sect down to Penguin City to the pharmacy Cangyun owns there. Hand it over. Then buy the items on the sect's list, plus whatever valuable herbs the pharmacy has collected, and bring it all back. Twice a month. Feng Jie got herb gathering in the deep mountains, which for him is close to a holiday, because his village sits at the foot of a mountain, and everyone in it has been hunting and digging and foraging since they could walk. Then the deacon finished reading and strode off, and we all got paid. 3 taels of silver. A full new disciple bonus, handed to every one of us this month as a sect benefit. Feng Jie held his in both hands and grinned like an idiot. Then he bit it. Now that you have money, I said, what are you going to do with it? Buy meat? He shook his head, chuckling. Saving up to get married? Brother Ming, what are you thinking about? He went slightly pink. I am sending it to my parents. I have younger brothers and sisters. With this they will not go hungry, and it will be easier for them. Right. By the way, Brother Ming, how are you spending yours? Body strengthening soup from the medicine refining hall, and you should too. Only when you are strong can you protect yourself and your family. Only then can you earn more. I get a free one every week. He shrugged, entirely comfortable. I will drink the free one, and I get an allowance every month, so I can always buy more later. I opened my mouth and then closed it, because I had already said it once, and everybody gets to choose, and the man was going to send 3 taels of silver down a mountain to a house full of children. I shook my head and let it go. Dawn at the main gate. 4 or 5 horse carts, servants going back and forth with crates, everything under oilcloth and roped down. 7 or 8 of us on escort plus the servants. I got there early, and the other outer sect disciples were already there, so I greeted the ones who had arrived before me and then stood off to one side and waited quietly, which is my entire social strategy and has never failed me. Then the last man arrived, and every conversation in that yard stopped. Tall, dark from the sun, a long sword at his waist. He did not say anything to anybody, and everybody looked at him like he was weather. Senior Brother Fang. He nodded about a centimeter, looked around, counted us, got on his horse, set off. A month of loitering around the arena listening to gossip had told me this much about Senior Brother Fang. There is a bandit stronghold, or there was, at a place called Wohu Village. Senior Brother Fang went into it, by himself. He killed a large number of the people in it, and the bandit chief did not stay to see how the rest of it went. He abandoned the entire village on the spot and ran, and as far as anyone knows, he is still running. Senior Brother Fang is an inner sect disciple and looks like a man carrying something heavy that is not the sword. Cangyun City is 30 or 40 LE from Cangyun, 2 or 3 hours by cart with the roads the way they are. The trip was completely uneventful except for the parts where we all got off and pushed. We rolled into Cangyun around noon. Small city, genuinely prosperous though. Travelers and caravans stopping through, and once in a while somebody walking past with a blade on his hip and the confidence to go with it. And I sat on that cart looking at the walls coming up and had an odd, tight feeling in my chest. I am back here, and nobody is ever doing that to me again. The Cangyun Pharmacy sits in the East Market, 300 square meters and busy the entire time we were there. Maids and household servants coming out with medicine bags for officials and rich merchants, cultivators going in for pills. A middle-aged man was waiting at the door, slightly plump, expensive clothes, an attendant at his shoulder. He came out fast and saluted. Senior Brother Fang, and all the junior brothers, thank you for the hard journey. Lunch is ready. Please come inside. Thank you for your hospitality, junior brother, Senior Brother Fang said, in the voice of a man reading a road sign. Manager Duan did not blink. He waved his attendant forward and got the unloading going. He has clearly known Senior Brother Fang for years and has made his peace with it. Manager Duan is Cangyun too, or was. Outer sect disciple, no talent for it, gave it up. But he can talk to anybody about anything, so they put him in a shop, and now he runs 300 square meters of the most profitable business in the East Market, and every cultivator in this city walks through his door and calls him manager. There is more than one ladder here. Somebody should tell the 50 kids in the arena. After lunch, Senior Brother Fang stood up. You are free in the city until 3. Be back here before 3 and be careful not to cause trouble. Then he walked off on his own, and I watched him go down the street with the crowd parting around him, and his back looked lonely in a way I did not have a word for. Got it, Senior Brother Fang. Everyone else scattered in about 4 seconds. I stayed in the shop first and browsed and got a genuine education. The pills in that place are priced like real estate. And my body-strengthening soup, the one I drink for 200 copper inside the sect and get free once a week, sells across that counter for 500 a bowl to anybody off the street. Then I went out with the sun on my face and a whole afternoon of freedom, and I did something I should be honest about, because I told myself a story at the time, and the story was not true. The story was that I was going for a nostalgic walk. I am a sentimental person, I told myself. I want to see the old neighborhood, and if I happen to run into anybody who was decent to me back then, I will repay them properly, maybe with a gift. I bought a whole roast chicken on the way and ate it as I walked, which is a thing I recommend doing at least once with money you did not exactly earn. Tastes good. It is free money, so I do not feel bad about buying things. The West Market is where the working people live. Narrow streets, crowded, wood and mud houses, walls with the paint coming off, windows that gave up some time ago. The East Market is mansions and wide flat bluestone streets and people walking around in fine clothes with light steps. When I arrived in this world, I begged in the West Market. Not by choice. I could not get into the East. They do not let you. So there I was, walking through my old neighborhood eating a chicken, being nostalgic, and that is when I saw him, coming down the street with the same walk, chin up, 2 wide men behind him, one tall, one short. The man who had taken my winter out of my hand without looking at my face. I want to be very precise about what happened inside my head at that moment because I have gone over it many times. My first thought was that Elder Gao is too wicked, bullying even the beggars. Someone should really speak to him. My second thought was that I should follow him at a distance and wait for a moment when he was alone, and then have a quiet conversation with him about not bullying the elderly and the weak, and about respecting his elders and caring for the young in order to promote social harmony and stability. Truly, I am a model youth. I followed them for 2 blocks. Now, Elder Gao's afternoon from his own side, which I reconstructed later with some pleasure. It had been the best day of his life. The pawn house gate had been pushed open for him by a servant, and he had strutted out of it with his chin so high he was mostly navigating by memory, happier than at his own daughter's wedding, because he had won at cards, not a little, a lot. His luck had been running hot for days, and today it had gone incandescent, and every card he wanted had come to his hand like it had been called by name, and if he had not been the owner's cheap father-in-law, they might not have let him walk out of that building with it. His men were working the flattery hard. Boss Gao's luck is amazing today. He gets whatever he wants, wins every single hand. In my opinion, Boss Gao is not just lucky. His card skills are top-notch. Even with luck, you cannot win if you cannot play. Yes. Boss Gao's card skills are so good now that he wins easy money. Elder Gao's chin went up another few degrees. Anyone who did not know him would have taken him for a lord. And then, nearly home, feeling expansive, he stopped and dug a handful of copper out of his purse. 20 or 30 coins. I won today. Everyone gets a share. Here, have a drink on me. Their eyes lit up. Thank you, Boss Gao. Then my brother and I will take our leave. He watched them go, patted his purse twice, started humming a tune, and swayed off toward home to sit down and count it slowly, which for a gambler is the best part. I watched the two big men peel off grinning with their drinking money. The opportunity has come. I started toward him, and I got about 4 steps before I noticed something lying on the ground by the wall, a torn sack, and a few meters further on, some loose sticks of firewood. I stopped. I looked at the sack. I looked at Elder Gao's back going down the street, and I thought, when you run into an old acquaintance, you really ought to give them a surprise. He might not remember me. I remember him. So I picked up the sack, and I picked up a stick, and I walked around to the corner he was going to turn, and I waited, patiently, like a model youth. He came around the corner humming. The sack came down over his head from above. Before he could beg, before he could shout, before he could get out one single word, I put a foot in him, and he went down onto the stone. Then there was the sound of a piece of firewood coming through the air behind him. He got about 2 attempts at defending himself, both of them very poor. Something connected with the top of his head and he stopped being able to tell which way up he was. Then something happened at the back of his neck and his eyes went, and Elder Gao lay down in the street to think it over. I would like to note that I did not say anything to him, not one word. He never found out who it was. 3 o'clock. Everyone back at the pharmacy door, all of us with the same pleasant expression, and there was no way on earth to tell who had eaten something good, who had played something fun, and who had seen something beautiful. Senior Brother Fang looked exactly as he had that morning, calm, silent. We loaded the purchases and started back. The winter sun sat high and the afternoon light was not harsh at all. It was warm and pleasant on the skin, and the road was smooth, and nothing happened, which is the correct outcome for a haulage job. It was dark by the time we came back into the sect, and the mountains out there were only outlines. Quick dinner, back to my room. Door closed, and then I took out the purse. It was bulging. I turned it over and emptied it onto the bed. Broken silver and copper coins went everywhere. This wicked old man is actually this rich. I counted it twice. 8 taels of silver and change, plus dozens of copper. Almost 3 months of my salary, lying on my blanket. Taken out of the purse of a man who had once taken 19 copper out of my hand and gone on talking about a card game. I did not know at the time that I had just walked off with the largest single win Elder Gao had had in years, and that he had been looking forward all afternoon to going home and counting it. I found that out later. I have made my peace with it. Then I put it away and got on with the evening, because the next mission was in 2 weeks, and I had a plan for those 2 weeks. Long arm fist to tier 3, which means tendon transforming. And now I could afford to buy body strengthening soup every single day instead of drinking 1 free bowl a week. Saving money is useless. Spend it on yourself and get stronger. You could die tomorrow, and then all that careful saving just goes to somebody else for free. I opened my door the next morning in a thin shirt, and the cold came in at me, and I felt it arrive, and then I felt nothing else happen. Out across the yard, the servants were working in thick padded coats with their shoulders up around their ears. That is the second thing skin refining does that nobody mentions. It is not only defense, it is temperature. My body had stopped negotiating with the weather. I stood in the doorway in a shirt in early winter for a while, purely because I could. Then I went and spent 200 copper on body strengthening soup and got to work, because being smug is not a schedule. And the schedule was this: up early, sleep early, cultivate morning and evening, read at the Academy Library in the gaps. It was the most regular life I have ever lived, in either world, and it should have been unbearable, and it was not, because I could watch the number move. Anybody who has ever ground anything knows exactly what I am talking about. Progress, you can see, is a drug, and there is no shortage of it. 20% to go until tier 3. I also made a point of wandering past the martial arts arena a few times a week to loiter and listen to the senior brothers talk, partly for information, mostly so that my face existed. If I ever end up on a mission with these people, I would rather not be the stranger they have to decide about. The gossip harvest was good. If you guard a wealthy merchant and the merchant tips you, the tip is yours. You do not hand that to the sect. Break through to bone forging, and you can become an inner sect disciple. And a senior brother confessed his feelings to a senior sister and was turned down, and the entire arena knew about it within a day, which tells you that gossip is a constant of the universe and does not require electricity. While I was doing all that, Wang Bo was having the worst week of his life. I did not know his name yet. I knew nothing about any of this. But you should have it, because otherwise the man who knocked on my door is just a man who knocked on my door. He was back in front of his uncle with 2 days left on a 1-week task. How is the matter I asked you to handle? Juju, I am still in the selection process. I just have not found a suitable candidate yet. He said it earnestly. He looked serious. He even looked slightly tired. It was a genuinely excellent performance, and it lasted right up until Hallmaster Wang's hand came down flat on the table. Keep pretending. Do not think I do not know what you have been doing these past few days. Wang Bo's face changed instantly into an apologetic smile. Juju, I was wrong. I remembered it clearly. I was just so engrossed in cultivating that I forgot. However, Juju, do not worry. There are still 2 days left. I will not do anything else for 2 days. I will focus solely on this, and I will definitely finish. Are you studying that nameless cultivation technique you picked up again? The smile came off. I have looked at your technique. I even showed it to the sect leader. It is written in a mysterious way. But when you actually cultivate it, nothing happens. You should give it up. It must be that my method is wrong. Wang Bo was not convinced and did not bother to hide it. As long as I find the right method, it will definitely work. Now, where he got it. Wang Bo had been up on Three-Headed Mountain looking for medicine when a downpour came in, and he went for shelter and found a hidden chamber in the rock. There was a skeleton in it. The bones were as white as jade and giving off a faint light, and had clearly been lying there a very long time. The skeleton was holding a silk scroll. It took him considerable effort to get it free, and when he opened it, it was covered edge to edge in dense writing. He has been trying to cultivate it ever since. So has, apparently, the sect leader of the Cangyun Sect in his spare time. Out of curiosity, nothing happens. Why are you so stubborn? If you keep studying that stupid technique, everyone else will pass you. Fine, I understand. I will not look into it anymore. He turned to go, impatient. If you do not get this done in the next 2 days, Hallmaster Wang said to his back, I will cut off your medicinal pills for a month. Wang Bo was already at the door. The corner of his mouth twitched. And one thing about Wang Bo matters more than all the rest of it. Wang Bo is genuinely talented. He is among the strongest inner sect disciples in Cangyun. He has been burning every hour he has on a scroll off a dead man that does not work, and the rest of his generation is closing on him, and his uncle can see it happening and cannot say the true version out loud, which is that he is worried. If Wang Bo were not his only nephew, he would not have bothered. So Wang Bo went straight from that room to the inner sect quarters and started the worst sales job in the history of the Cangyun Sect. Knock, knock, knock. Junior brother Han, are you there? Door opens. A young man of medium build. So it is senior brother Wang. What brings you here? Wang Bo rubbed his hands together. Junior brother Han, it is like this. The medicine refining hall is recruiting apprentices. I wonder if you would be interested. Nothing. If you become a physician later, your treatment will be the same as a steward's. Thank you for thinking so highly of me, senior brother Wang. But my ambition lies in martial arts, and I do not have time to study medicine, which is fair. The boy was young and going somewhere. And becoming a physician means memorizing the names, the shapes, and the effects of hundreds or thousands of herbs, and that is step 1 of a road that has a lot of steps. Wang Bo went down the entire inner sect, every door, one by one. Almost all of them said no. Exactly one man said yes, a senior brother in his 30s, willing to give it a try. Wang Bo was so happy he nearly wept. And then halfway through the conversation, it came out that the man could not read. Not could not read well, could not read. He had come up through the outer sect on physical talent alone, and he had been getting his cultivation technique explained to him out loud by a senior brother because he could not work through the text. Wang Bo had to turn down the only volunteer he had. I cannot even read all the characters, the man said. How could I possibly understand a medical book? Wang Bo walked out of the inner sect with nothing. No hope here. The outer sect has a lot more people. Let us try the outer sect. And then, walking past the academy, he stopped dead and slapped himself on the forehead and went inside. He came out carrying 2 things, a book and a list. With this list, the search will be much easier. I am such a clever guy. The list was every disciple who had ever come to the academy to study, which is not many people, which is the entire point. My name was on it. The book was a literacy test. By the time he got to my block, he had crossed off nearly everyone. He can read, but not many characters. That was most of them. A few were actually decent, and every one of those was proud and martial arts obsessed and fantasizing about being a master one day, and had absolutely no interest in spending 10 years learning herbs. Wang Bo understood them completely, because that is exactly why he had never learned medicine from his uncle. Huo Ming, 15 years old, newly promoted outer sect disciple, quite talented, should break through to bone forging before he is 20 and get into the inner sect. He looked at the door. I bet he is obsessed with martial arts too, but we are already here. Let us go and ask him anyway. Knock, knock, knock. I opened the door and found a young man in extremely good clothes standing there. Inner sect, I thought, immediately. You can tell by the fabric. Is there anything I can do for you, senior brother? He handed me a book. I have a book here. Can you understand this? I took it and flipped through a few pages. Is this not a novel? I have already read it. He gave me a look that said he did not believe me even slightly and started jabbing his finger at characters at random. I read everyone back to him. His whole face opened up. Ahem. He straightened. Ho Ming, junior brother. So young, and yet so learned and talented. Clearly an exceptionally intelligent person. I reached up and touched my own hair. I felt that this senior brother was insulting me, but I had no proof. You flatter me, senior brother. You are the truly brilliant one. He nodded slightly, as if agreeing with my assessment. Well, senior brother is quite straightforward, so I will just say it directly. The medicine hall is looking to hire a few apprentices. I wonder if junior brother would be interested. And he looked at me with the most naked hope I have ever seen on a grown man's face. Now. And that is where I stopped being a 15-year-old and started being a man with 30 years of employment history. Because he had led with the pitch. Which means he needs this. Which means I am not the customer, I am the supply. What are the benefits of being an apprentice? I said. How much is the monthly allowance? You could see him get happier. There are many benefits. Apprentices get 10% off all herbs and pills from the medicine hall. Monthly allowance is the same as an outer sect disciple's, and if you become a physician, your allowance will far exceed that. After becoming an apprentice, does one still have to do the missions assigned by the affairs hall every month? Once you become an apprentice, you do not do missions anymore. He answered that one fast. If there is a special mission, apprentices or physicians are assigned, but that is very rare. You might not encounter it once in a year. I kept my face exactly where it was. No monthly mission. No more escort runs. No more roads with bandits on them. No more standing in a yard while a deacon reads out who is going into the deep mountains this month. That one line was worth the whole conversation. What are the apprentices' working hours like each day? Well, the apprenticeship period is quite tight. You need to be familiar with every kind of medicinal material, plant, animal, and mineral. You need to read a great many medical books and remember the effects and the pharmacology of everything. He recovered. But once you have mastered them, you can arrange your own time freely as long as you complete the tasks assigned each day, especially after you become a physician. As long as the sect's work is done, you can do whatever you want. There will be tons of benefits later, you will see. Then he played what he clearly considered his ace. Junior brother, you are only 15 now, and you can read. If you study hard, you will definitely become a physician in 10 years. You will be 25 then, still young. I did not answer. I stood in my doorway and appeared to weigh it, which I was in fact doing, but not about the part he thought. And Wang Bo, watching me think, gritted his teeth and gambled next month's pill supply. If junior brother Lin is willing to be an apprentice, this senior brother will owe you a favor. If you ever need any help, come to me. As long as it is within my power, I will definitely help you. He was not finished. And if you become a physician later, senior brother will give you a big gift. Senior brother, I said, I agree to be your apprentice. His face did something you rarely see on an adult. Good, junior brother Lin, it is settled. My name is Wang Bo. You can call me senior brother Wang. I did not, for the record, care about the big gift. I assumed it was money. People say things like that. He told me to wait at the medicine hall gate in 2 days, and he would take me in himself, and then he left at speed, and I stood there in my doorway with a book I had not given back. Here is why I actually said yes. I wanted to know if the panel does professions. It does martial arts. Fine. Wonderful. But everything I had seen so far had been a fist art, and there is a version of this cheat where it only ever does fist arts, and there is a version where it does anything a human being can get better at through repetition. Those are two completely different lives. If it works, then with the panel, I become a physician in a fraction of the time it takes anybody else. And a physician has pills. A physician has herbs. A physician is expected to consume some of the stock. That is the job. Everything I have been buying at extortionate prices becomes something I am standing next to, and if it does not work, I invent a reason and go back to being an outer sect disciple, and I have lost a couple of months. There was one more thing, and it was the quiet one. A physician can walk into any town in this world and eat. I have already done it the other way. I have already sat in a street and negotiated with a dog. I, Huo Ming, also have my pride. That night there was a full moon over the courtyard, which I only mentioned because it meant I could train outside without a lamp. Light steps. Agile. Every move of the long arm fist finally sitting where it belongs, with that balance in it between tension and release that I had been chasing for months. If you had been standing at the edge of the trees, you would have heard the wind coming off my arms. Then, in the middle of the set, something went click, click, click all the way up my spine. Chi, coming up out of somewhere and sweeping through the whole of me. Out to the limbs, back into the torso, up into the neck and the head, and every channel it went through made a faint humming sound, and the feeling that came with it was so comfortable it was almost funny. Long arm fist. Breakthrough. It had taken a little over 2 months this time, slower than the last one, which I noted because that is a curve, and curves tell you things. Panel. Name. Huo Ming. Life expectancy. 15 out of 70 years. Realm. Body tempering realm. Tendon transforming. Martial skill. Long arm fist. Tier 3. 1%. 70. It had been 60. 10 years. In one breakthrough. I sat down on the ground in the moonlight and did the only thing a former office worker can do in that situation, which is compare rates of return. The first tier gave me 2 years. This one gave me 10. That is not linear. That is not even close to linear. And immediately the real question, which I could not answer and wrote down in my head anyway, is the lifespan coming from the martial skill going up a tier or from the realm going up a layer? Because those two things happened at the same time both times, and if I ever want to know which lever I am pulling, I am going to have to break one of them without the other. Then the tier 3 package landed and I stopped doing arithmetic, because this was not like last time. Last time I got technique, this time I got a library. Derivative routines came up in my head with names attached. Small chain, large chain, disassembly fist, 12 chain fists, footwork, walking steps, strolling steps, chain steps, leg techniques that are meant to be hidden inside the hands, low kicks going in at 7 inches. And the posture, all of it at once, head upright, neck lifted, front open, back solid, chest relaxed, abdomen drawn, shoulders extended, arms long, wrists flexible, body like a bow, hands like arrows, waist like a screw, feet like drills. So this is how you train the long arm fist. I had been throwing a beginner's version of this art for 8 months, the version they teach 50 children in a yard, and I had thought I was good at it, and the body underneath all of it had changed again. Flexibility, coordination, things I physically could not do a week earlier were suddenly easy. My senses were sharper. My energy was up in a way that made the previous version of me look like a man recovering from an illness. Not a total transformation. Many, many times better. This body tempering martial art, which the sect hands out free to every servant who survives a year, and which they consider the entry-level product. I looked up at the moon for a while. Then I said, out loud, to nobody, we are going to the medicine hall tomorrow, and went to wash and sleep because I had an appointment. I got to the gate early, obviously. 2 more people turned up after me, utility disciples by their clothes, one fat and one thin, and they came around the corner chatting and laughing and then saw me and stopped and bowed. That is what outer sect means, it turns out. It means the servants stop talking when you show up. I nodded back and felt strange about it for a second, and then let it go, because the last time I felt strange about the class system in this world I was on the bottom rung of it. Their faces were familiar. It took me a moment and then I placed them. The academy. They had been in the reading room, back when I was still going. Which means all 3 of us can read, and all 3 of us are here for the same job. Junior brother Lin, you are here pretty early. Wang Bo arriving loud, in a good mood. Senior brother Wang. Junior brother Lin, and the other 2 junior brothers. I will take you inside. And the exact shape of his attitude was not subtle, warm to me, correct to them. I am 15, I scored best on the literacy test, and I am an outer sect disciple with martial talent. They are both nearly 20. They have been studying at the academy for years. They barely scraped through the reading, and neither of them has any talent for fighting, so Wang Bo was polite to them and worked on me. For those 2, though, this was enormous. A medicine hall apprentice sits well above a utility disciple. No menial work at all, higher stipend, not a fortune, and not the same as an outer sect disciples, unless you turn out to have real talent. But it is a different life. And if either of them actually made physician, they would go straight into the middle ranks of the sect in one jump. A carp over the dragon gate. And even if they did not, a few years of study here and they could walk down that mountain and be the medicine man of a village that has never had one. That is what those 2 were carrying when they walked into that courtyard behind me. Hallmaster Wang was waiting, and with him, an old man in a blue robe with a face full of lines and white hair. Brother Shu. These three are prospective apprentices I found within the sect. They are all literate, and one of them is an outer sect disciple. I would appreciate it if Brother Shu would take good care of them. Hall Master Wang bowed to him. A hall master, bowing to a physician with no cultivation at all. Physician Shu looked at the three of us and took his time about it. Hall Master Wang, please rest assured, I will teach them with all my heart. Then, the other half. But I am getting old, and my energy is insufficient, so I can only choose one of the three to teach. The fat one beside me stopped breathing. I will give them 3 months. After 3 months I will personally examine them and see who remembers the most medicinal herbs. That one, I will teach. Whether they become physicians in the end depends on their own destiny. He said all of it slowly and pleasantly, and his face while he said it made it very clear that he did not expect any of us to become anything, which to be fair to him is not cynicism. Becoming a real physician takes years of grinding work, and medicine is not a profession you can rush, and he had watched people try. That is right, Hall Master Wang said. Brother Shu only needs to teach. Then to us. You three heard what Physician Shu said. In the end, who gets his guidance depends on how hard you work. We heard you. 3 bows. And then the books came out. These record the names, shapes, growing environments, effects, properties, and main functions of commonly used herbal, animal, and mineral medicines. The 3 of you will start memorizing these today. He set them on the table. I will give you 3 months. After 3 months, I will test you. I will select only the one who remembers the most and teach him to identify medicines, prepare medicines, treat wounds, and so on. If you encounter anything you do not understand, you can ask me. And you may look at the herbs in the medicine hall cabinets to speed up your memorization. Then he left. The 3 of us stood there and looked at each other. This was not what I had signed up for. I had pictured an apprenticeship, standing next to the old man, handing him things, watching him work and asking questions. That is what an apprentice is. Instead, he had put a pile of books on a table and walked away. And then I thought about it for 10 seconds and understood exactly what he was doing. A physician has to know every common herb on site, name, properties, effects, what it treats, instantly, without thinking, the way you know a word. If you do not have that, then standing next to Physician Shu is useless. He says a name, and you have nothing. No association, no memory, no picture. You stand there like furniture while an old man treats a patient. You cannot assist in a language you do not speak. So, fine, reasonable. Correct even. Then I picked the book up. It was thicker than a brick. I reached up and touched my own hair, which I have started to notice I do when I am in trouble, and had the following thought. This is doomed, and this is only the herb catalog. There were dozens more books along that wall, on combinations, on usage records, on application technique, and every single one of them was somebody's life's work. This is why Wang Bo could not find anybody. This is the actual reason. It is not that people are lazy. It is that he was walking around the Cangyun Sect showing this book to teenagers, and they were doing the same thing I was doing right now and coming to the same conclusion. I shook my head and laughed at myself. What am I worried about? I am here to test the panel. If it does not work, I find an excuse and go back to being an outer sect disciple. I had asked Senior Brother Wang about the exit before I ever said yes, and the exit was real. Then I looked over at the other 2. They were worried too. You could see it on both of them. But underneath the worry, their eyes had something in them that mine did not, and it took me a second to identify what it was. They did not have an exit. Time to start the intensive study again, I said to my empty room that evening, looking at the stack on the table. 3 years of mock exams and 5 years of entrance prep. Let us spend a month on this carefully and see if I can get the skill. I could afford a month. That was the whole calculation. I had already broken through to tendon transforming. And I knew from arena gossip that the normal timeline from starting the long arm fist to skin refining is more than half a year, and for the less talented over a year, and some of them never leave it at all. I had done skin refining in a bit over 2 months, and tendon transforming in a bit over 2 more. I was ahead. I could spend a month. And the system I built out of that, which I am still proud of, went like this. Cultivate the long arm fist first thing in the morning, then take out a medical book and read carefully and with full attention until my head starts to go soft and my eyes stop working. At that exact point, stop reading. Go outside, throw the long arm fist. And every time I did, I could feel my internal energy going up a notch. Then come back in and read again. And when the cultivation had wrung the body out, sit down with a book. Because reading lets the body recover. Reading tires the head and rests the body. Training tires the body and clears the head. Run them against each other in a loop and neither one ever has to stop. A perpetual motion machine, I said out loud in an empty room, delighted with myself. I am so clever. Sometimes I took half a day off and did nothing at all, wandering around the sect, because a perpetual motion machine that runs for 30 straight days is called a breakdown. A month went by. I looked by then less like an outer sect disciple and more like a scholar. Gentle, refined. I could feel it happening, and I let it. And the panel did not disappoint me. A week in, 1 week. After I had gone through the entire herb catalog once, carefully front to back, a new line appeared on the gray panel that had not been there before. Name, Huo Ming, occupation, physician, tier 1, 30%. I did not shout because I was in my room and the walls are thin. I sat on the edge of my bed with my hands on my knees and stared at the word occupation for a very long time. Then I got up and went to the cafeteria and ate several extra bowls of rice because you have to celebrate somehow. Occupation, not martial skill. Occupation, which means it is not a fist art panel. It is not a combat panel. It is a panel for anything a human being can get better at by doing it on purpose. I sat in that cafeteria with a bowl of rice and started listing things, and then I stopped listing things because the list did not end and it was making me lightheaded. 2 more discoveries that month, and both of them mattered. The first one is that the tier 3 insight had quietly doubled my training. If I kept training the long arm fist the way Deacon Joe teaches it, tier 3 proficiency crawls, fractions of a percent, days of work for almost nothing. If I trained it the way the tier 3 package showed me, I got 1% every 2 or 3 days. Each session cost more time and more stamina. It was harder in every way. It was twice as fast, which tells me something about what this panel actually is, and it is not a cheat that does the work for me. The insight it hands out is better than the instruction of a deacon of the skill transmission hall with 20 years of teaching behind him. It is not making me stronger. It is removing every wasted repetition from a road that everybody else has to walk in the dark. The second discovery cost me money to make. The body strengthening soup had stopped working properly. Not entirely, but nothing like before. I asked around the medicine hall about it and got the answer in about 10 seconds from a man who was surprised I did not know. Body strengthening soup is a skin refining medicine. At tendon transforming it does something. It does not do much, so I stopped buying it. I did not stop drinking the free one, obviously. I am not made of money, and I have never once in my life turned down a free thing. By the end of that month, I had grown again, almost 1.70 meters. If you did not know, you would take me for an adult, except for the last of the roundness that had not gone out of my face yet. I had been in this world 1.5 years. I had come into it lying on a mat holding my own stomach. The next morning, I walked across the sect and everybody I passed had a good face on. Down at the utility block, they were hanging lanterns and colored streamers. The Lunar New Year was coming. I went to the medicine hall library to swap books, and the other 2 apprentices were already in there. I stopped in the doorway when they looked up because they had changed. Bloodshot eyes, dark circles you could have measured, gray faces, no energy in them at all. I recognized it instantly because I had worn that exact face in my previous life after 3 consecutive nights of not going to bed for reasons that seemed important at 2 in the morning and were not. Then I caught my own reflection in the window on the way past. Color in my face, bright eyes, and I had come in here half smiling about something. I genuinely felt bad for them. You too. I put my hands up. There is no need to push yourselves this hard. Maintaining your health is the most important thing. Which was, in hindsight, the least welcome sentence in the room. Senior brother Lin, it is all Zhou Sheng's fault. The chubby one, Zhou Li, pointed at the thin one with real anger. We agreed to come and go together every day, and he keeps arriving at the library early. I did not wake you because I saw you were still sleeping, and I did not want to disturb you. That is Zhou Sheng, small, thin, sharp little eyes, and at that moment wearing the most injured expression I have ever seen on a human face. Once was fine, but you have been coming earlier and earlier every day. Well, you are the same now, and they were off. You run into the King of Scrolls everywhere you go, I thought, and stopped trying to help, because look at the arithmetic. There were 3 of us and 1 place. 2 of them started as friends who told each other everything, and Physician Shu had put 1 prize on the table and walked away, and now they were in a race that neither of them could get out of, and every hour one of them slept was an hour the other one was awake. I had a golden finger. I did not need to get involved with any of that. They could not beat me anyway. I went along the shelves and pulled a book, then another one, then a couple more, because I had had an idea a few days earlier and I wanted to test it, and I put Physician Shu's herb catalog back on the shelf. Senior brother Lin, Zhou Sheng's eyes had followed my hands the whole time. Are you not going to read the medical book Physician Shu gave you? I have finished those. I gave him a small smile. I am planning to switch to some other medical books. Something happened in his voice. Did Physician Shu not say to memorize all the medicinal herbs recorded in that book? Senior brother Lin, are you planning to give up? I did not answer. I took my books and walked out, and behind me, Zhou Sheng was not annoyed at all. Zhou Sheng was delighted, see it from where he was standing, because he was not being stupid, he was being reasonable. He had never once seen me in that library, not one time in a month, and now I had returned the assigned book and picked up a couple of others at random, the way you do when you want to be seen carrying something. Senior brother Lin has definitely given up. Then he looked across at Zhou Li, still grinding away with his ruined eyes, and hardened his heart. I will live in the library then. On the way back I went past Feng Jie's door and heard him inside. Oh, you are back. How did the mission go? Brother Ming, the mission is complete. It just took a long time. That medicine is really hard to find. We searched for ages in the deep mountains with the picture book before we finally got it. He turned his arm over and showed me. His forearm was covered in dense red bites, dozens of them from wrist to elbow. I got bitten by so many bugs looking for that medicine. It has been hard enough. Good that it is finished. Brother Ming, I took a trip home during the mission. He was already grinning about it. I gave my parents this month's allowance. They were so happy. I did not say anything about that. I had already advised him once, and there is no version of saying it twice that is not just me being right at somebody. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone's parents are different. Mine were in another world. By the way, Brother Ming, did you complete your mission? I am an apprentice at the medicine hall now, so I do not have to do missions anymore. I held up the stack. Maybe I will become a physician soon. He looked at the books, then at me, and his face fell apart. You have stopped practicing martial arts? He was genuinely shocked, and I understood why. Feng Jie knew, better than anyone alive, how badly I had wanted this. He had watched me do it while I could not lift a bucket. Practice, of course I will practice, I said. There is no rule saying you cannot practice martial arts after becoming an apprentice. We talked a while longer, and then went back to our own rooms. By the end of that week, the whole sect had gone red. Lanterns under every eave and on every pavilion, paper cuts on the windows, the character for fortune on the doors. The couplets on either side of the main gate went up personally by the hand of Senior Brother Shu, who runs the Utility Disciples, in a flowing dragon and phoenix script that I could now, thanks to 1 year of night classes, actually read. The gate welcomes 100 blessings, and a lucky star shines. The household gathers 1,000 auspicious omens, and auspicious chi opens, a journey of 10,000 miles. The sect got noticeably more crowded, because everybody who was out on a mission was coming home for the celebration. The martial arts arena was full in every corner, and up on the high platform people were sparring, and below it a crowd was standing around watching and shouting. I went and watched for a long time, and I learned 2 things. The first is that almost everybody uses the long arm fist, and every single one of them has made it their own. Some throw it fierce and solid, hammering. Some throw it calm and light, drifting in and out. Same art, 50 personalities. The second thing is that all of it was rudimentary. I did not want to think that. I stood there watching men 4 and 5 years older than me spar, and my head kept supplying the same information anyway. No variation, no chains, everything visible from 2 moves away. If I went up there against any of them at equal strength, I would end it fast. I did not go up there. Keep a low profile. Sit down. Watch. Learn what everybody's fighting looks like so that when I meet somebody with bad intentions on a road one day, I already know the shape of it. For the record, at that point, I could put a fist print into a tree trunk with 1 punch. That is what the senior brothers call bright strength, which arrives around tendon transforming, and it injures tendons and bone. A punch with bright strength in it sends an ordinary man off his feet and off the ground. After that comes dark strength, which arrives at bone forging, and dark strength permeates. You hit a man with it, and his skin looks completely fine, and inside him, things have already stopped working properly. It takes real talent and real comprehension to grasp it, and plenty of people never do. And above that, they say, is transforming strength. No disciple in this sect has it. It is a thing that belongs to elders and to sect masters, and that is as far as anybody at my level even has words for. The celebration itself was at noon a few days later. No disciples in the arena that day. Instead, there were about 100 tables and chairs, and every table was covered with food, and I mean the good kind, the kind with color and smell and steam coming off it. By 11, the whole place was full, and the seating told you everything you needed to know about this world without a single word being spoken. At the very front, the sect leader, the hall masters, the physicians, the stewards, then the inner sect disciples, then the outer sect, and at the very edges, out at the rim where the tables ran out, the utility disciples. I had eaten at that rim exactly 1 year ago. Then a middle-aged man appeared on the high platform, and I mean appeared. Light blue robe with gold trim at the collar and cuffs, jade green belt, hair up in a high bun with a jade pin through it. He looked like a scholar. He looked like a man who would be very good at explaining poetry. That was Shen Long, sect leader of the Cangyun Sect. He smiled out at 100 tables and started talking. And he talked for 10 minutes. 10. Then he finished, and there was a sound like cloth moving, and he was off the platform and seated at the head table. I did not see him move. Not a step, not a blur. I was looking right at the platform, and the platform simply had nobody on it. The sect leader's speed is comparable to a ghost, I thought, and I did not see any of it. Although honestly the thing that impressed me most was the 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Concise. Everything in it. No dragging. In my previous life, a company annual meeting would not have finished in 3 hours and would have contained no information whatsoever. The content, for the record. Everyone worked hard this year. Keep striving next year. Double allowance this month. Half a month off in rotation over New Year. Go home if you have somewhere to go. Arrange your own time if you do not. And prosperity in your martial Tao. The applause was enormous. People stood up. There were gongs and drums going outside the walls. The whole place was genuinely, uncomplicatedly happy. I sat with Feng Jie and the rest of our batch, and everyone ate and drank, and it was good. And then, halfway through the meal, I noticed something was wrong with Feng Jie. Feng Jie is an enthusiastic eater. That is not a criticism, it is a defining trait. There was a table of food in front of him that he would have talked about for a year, and he was distracted. So was most of our table. I stopped eating and watched him, and I saw his eyes go forward and up and then come back down. I followed them. Up at the front, near the sect leader, there were several tables of people who were not disciples. Children, young men and women, young married women, all of them in clothes that were made of something, in bright colors, cut in ways nobody at our end of the arena had ever seen. Families of the sect's senior men, living under the sect's protection, on the sect's benefits, and you could tell what they were from 30 meters, and it had nothing to do with the clothes. It was that they had all been fed, every day, their entire lives. Nobody at those tables had ever had a winter decide something about them. I leaned over to Feng Jie and grinned. "Which pretty young miss has caught your eye, kid? Do you want me to go and introduce you?" "Ah, no. I have not." He denied it about 4 times in a row and went red from the neck up. The entire table burst out laughing, and not one person mocked him, because every single one of them had been doing exactly the same thing 4 minutes earlier and knew it. I let it drop after that. Because it was the first time in their lives most of those boys had been in a room with a woman who had never worked outdoors. They were farm kids and orphans and street cases who had spent the last year hauling water. That look was not lechery, it was somebody looking through a window at a house. I finished my food quickly, turned down Feng Jie's toast, and slipped back to my room while the noise was still going. Even from the far side of the sect I could hear it. I poured myself a cup of water, opened a medical book, and said out loud, to a room with one person in it, "I will just keep grinding my physician proficiency. I will come out at dinner. Physician, 36%. Long arm fist, 18. Watching those numbers go up a fraction at a time is the single most motivating thing that has ever happened to me, and I could not put it down. By evening my stomach was making noise, and I went out to eat, and the sect had emptied. Everyone who lived close by had packed in the afternoon and gone. The rest had rounded up their friends and headed into Cangyun City in groups to spend their double allowance on whatever 15-year-olds spend it on. Every person I passed was smiling, and I got about halfway to the cafeteria and something opened up under my ribs. I have been in this world over a year and a half. I have a room. I have a job. I have a friend. I belong here now. I actually do. And my family is not here. In my old life, I would already have been home for days by now. I would have been in my mother's kitchen getting in the way, helping with a table full of dishes I did not know how to make. I would have had a couple of drinks with my father, and the 3 of us would have been easy with each other in a way that takes 30 years to build. In the evening, we would have watched the New Year Gala. The programs had got much worse. We watched it anyway, all 3 of us, for the noise in the room. And on the first morning of the year, my parents would have given me a red envelope with a blessing in it, and I was 31 years old, and they still did it. There are not going to be any more red envelopes. I stopped walking, in the middle of a path, in the dark. Mom, Dad, Happy New Year in advance, and good health. I do not even know if it is anywhere near New Year over there. I do not know if a single day has passed. I do not know what they were told. I have thought about that particular question exactly as many times as I can stand to. That was the last thing I said to them. I decided it standing on that path. From now on, I live here, and I live well, and that is the whole of it. Knock, knock, knock. It was not even dawn yet. Who is it? Brother Ming. It is me. I got my eyes half open, stretched, yawned, and shuffled over to the door. Feng Jie was standing outside with a bundle over his shoulder. It is not even light. Why are you up so early? Brother Ming, I am going home for New Year today. Right. Safe trip. I came to ask if you want to come to my house for a few days. I stood there in a doorway in the dark. He knew I was an orphan. He knew I had no family and no other friends in the sect. He had worked out entirely on his own, without anybody prompting him, that I was about to spend the New Year alone in an empty building, and he had got up before dawn on the morning of his own holiday to fix it. Feng Jie, I got it out. Thank you for the kindness, but I have other plans. I will visit your house another time when I have the chance. Which was true. My plans were to grind physician proficiency and go and ask the medicine hall what actually works at tendon transforming. They were extremely good plans, and I have thought about that answer more than once since. Oh, all right then, Brother Ming. I will see you in half a month. See you in half a month. Be safe on the road. I could not get back to sleep after that. I lay there in the dark and thought, a strong person must endure loneliness, work in secret, and then amaze everyone. And I pictured myself years from now, some kind of supreme expert, standing somewhere high up, commanding heroes, doing exactly as I pleased. I lay there enjoying that for a good 90 seconds. Then I clapped my hands 3 times, hard, in an empty room. Wake up, stop dreaming. And I took out the brick and got back to work. On the first day of the new year, I sat in my room and counted my money. With the doubled allowance, about 14 taels of silver. 14 taels. A year and a half ago, I was working toward 300 copper for a coat. After lunch, I went straight to the medicine refining hall, and then I walked around the outside of the building several times, which I will admit to, because I stood out there having an argument with myself like a man outside a shop with a watch in the window. Then I gritted my teeth and went in. Spend it. If you have money, spend it, and spend it on the only thing here that compounds. One step slow means every step after it is slow. The dispensary counter had an old man behind it with his eyes squinted shut, resting. Senior brother, excuse me, I want to buy medicinal pills for the tendon transforming stage. I said it quietly and tapped the counter, expecting to be growled at. His eyes opened and he smiled at me, not a trace of irritation at being woken up by a 15-year-old. Which pill do you want to buy? There are 2 suited to tendon transforming, that is Elder Song. And Elder Song has lived most of a life and understands people better than anybody in that building, which is precisely how a man with no martial talent comes up from utility disciple to running the counter that every cultivator in the sect has to walk up to. If he had had talent, he would be a manager by now. Senior Brother Song, I do not know which to buy. Could you tell me which medicines are suitable for tendon transforming? Ask the man who knows. Ask him respectfully. This is not a trick, it is just the only correct behavior, and it works in every world I have lived in. There are 2. One is solid body soup. A set of the ingredients costs 300 copper, and the effect is average. The other is Cangyun powder. One portion is 500 copper, and the effect is definitely better than the former. Then he stroked his long beard and waited, and did not push me toward either one. I bought 7 portions of the Cangyun powder, showed my apprentice token for the 10% discount, and still walked out of there over 3 taels lighter. It truly is poor in literature and rich in martial arts. That is a saying here, and I had heard it 100 times without feeling it. I felt it walking home with 7 paper packets in my hands. 3 taels a month feeds a family of 3 for 2 or 3 months. For a martial artist, 3 taels a month is not even enough to buy medicine. That is the whole economy of this world in one line. The people at the bottom can eat. The people climbing cannot afford to climb. Back in my room. 2 hours of medical books first, because the books do not care about my mood. Then 1 portion of the powder. It came up through me fast. Heat everywhere, and a feeling of having an unreasonable amount of energy available and nothing to do with it. I cultivated for 4 or 5 hours before I got tired. Then I wiped my face and opened the panel. Long arm fist proficiency, up 1% in a single session, 2 or 3 days of normal work, in one afternoon. 1 portion is 1%. Not bad, extremely not bad. Also 500 copper. I took 1 portion a day for 12 days. By day 12, I had spent over 5 taels of silver, and I sat down and did the projection, which I should have done on day 1 and had deliberately not done on day 1. 13 taels a month. I earned 3. I have never in either life been so comprehensively upside down on a budget. There is no version of this where the numbers meet. Next month, I would not be able to cultivate at all, so on the 13th day, I went to the mountain. Because I had heard the senior brothers say it at the arena. Villagers at the foot of Cangyun Mountain, if they get lucky, sometimes come out with Ganoderma, sometimes ginseng. Ganoderma and ginseng are worth tens of taels a plant at the bottom end. Good quality and real age, and you are talking hundreds, thousands for the right one. Fine, I have a tendon transforming body, a machete, and the entire east side of a mountain range. How hard can it be? East side of the Cangyun mountain range. Winter, but some of the trees up there were still green, and there was bird song going somewhere off in the distance. Sunlight came down through the leaves and melted the frost off the branches, and by mid-morning the dead leaves on the ground were covered in irregular yellow patches of light. My foot came down in a puddle and threw muddy water in every direction. I was dressed as plainly as possible, with a back basket and a machete, cutting branches out of my way and walking into places nobody had walked into, with my eyes going over everything, the ground, the roots, the bark. I had been doing that all morning. I stopped and looked back over my shoulder at the basket, which was completely full. Worthless stuff. All of it. Every plant in there was something you could buy by the sack. If I carried the entire basket down and sold it to the sect, I would get a dozen copper maybe. There was one thing I had not accounted for. I know nothing about foraging. Nothing. I could recite the properties and meridians of 4,000 herbs, and I could not find one growing. I had genuinely believed that you walk into a mountain and the mountain gives you something. That is what happens in the books. That is what happens to the protagonist. Unfortunately, I do not have the protagonist's luck. I have never once had it. I got a golden finger a full year late and it made me do homework. If I cannot find Ganoderma or ginseng, I said out loud to a large amount of forest, then some fleeceflower root is not too much to ask, is it? The forest did not respond. Around noon, I sat down, took out my dry rations, and ate them with great enthusiasm because being outdoors makes anything taste like food. I came down that evening with a heavy basket and a dozen copper and refused to accept it. I will not believe it. I am going again tomorrow. I went again the next day, and the day after. 2 more days in the mountains. Nothing. Torn clothes. And when you factor in the 2 days I was not training, a net loss. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, I finally accepted the situation. Nothing is ever that simple. I had gone up that mountain full of origin chi, and I was coming down full of death chi, and I turned into a shaded lane between the trees with my basket on my back and my mood somewhere below the soles of my feet, and then I stopped, because the wind had come around and it had a smell on it. Rust, iron, blood. I looked into the wind. Not far ahead, at the side of the path, a man was lying face down and not moving, and he was not going to move again. Standing over him were 2 men in thick gray cotton clothes with long knives in their hands, bent over the body, going through it. Bandits. Robbery. I stopped breathing properly. Why am I so unlucky? I have been outside the sect 2 or 3 times in my entire life, and I have walked into this. I crouched down, got low, and started backing up, slowly, feet light, weight rolling, not turning around, because turning around is how you make noise. A wise man does not stand under a crumbling wall. Run first. There are 2 of them, and they have blades. I got 4 steps. Then a man swaggered out from behind a large tree behind me, and stood in the middle of the path, entirely at his ease, with a long knife resting on his shoulder. There were 3. The 2 at the body straightened up. Nobody hurried. The 3 of them arranged themselves around me in a triangle without discussing it, which told me they had done this before, and recently, and often. He must be a medicine gatherer from one of the villages, the big one behind me said, looking me over and then looking at the basket. The other 2 exchanged a glance, and both of them got the same expression at the same time, and it was the one a cat gets. Here is what they were seeing. 15 years old, but already as tall as a man. Plain rough clothes. A back basket full of common plants and a farm machete. They were seeing a peasant boy who had come up the mountain to dig, so I gave them the peasant boy. Big brothers. I let my body shake, and I dropped my head, and I got the words out unevenly. I just passed by here. I did not see anything. I do not know what you look like. I will not spread any rumors. I took a dozen copper coins out of my clothes and set them down on the ground in front of me. All the money I have is here. You can take it all. I want to be precise about something because it matters to me. That was not fear making the decision. It looked exactly like fear. It was arithmetic. 3 grown men, all armed, standing over somebody they had killed within the last hour, which means they were not deciding whether they were the kind of people who do that. They had already decided, and the piece I did not have was the important one. I did not know whether they cultivated. If even one of those 3 was a martial artist, then everything I could do was a rounding error. A step back opens up a vast sky. When it is time to bow, you bow. I am not the son of heaven, and my life is not required to be smooth. There is no need to invite trouble over 12 copper. Reporting them to the authorities afterward, incidentally, never entered my head for 1 second, so the only question in that lane was whether they would let me walk. My submission stopped all 3 of them for a moment, and then it did what submission does, which is that their eyes filled up with contempt and their shoulders came down. Every one of them relaxed. You are a strong-looking lad. The one with the scar across his face sneered at me. But it turns out you are a coward. Which they found reassuring, and which was, from their side, a completely reasonable read. Except that they were not going to let me go, and I understood that about 2 seconds before they said it, because of what was lying in the road behind them. Normally, those 3 robbed and did not kill. That was the business model. Today the man on the path had refused to hand anything over, fought them the whole way, and very nearly got clear, and they had lost their tempers and finished it. And now there was a witness standing in the lane. 1 or 2 makes no difference to the sentence. Only dead men keep secrets. Kid, you can only blame your bad luck for running into us. Scarface started toward me. But do not worry, my blade is very sharp. It will not hurt. Do not kill me. I put a shake in it and got the basket off my shoulders. I have Ganoderma in my basket. I will give it to you as well. Just do not kill me. The word landed in that lane like a coin on a table. Really? All three faces changed at once, because even bandits know what Ganoderma is. Ganoderma is not a plant. It is a number. And the number was large enough that 3 men living in a wood could stop living in a wood. Scarface came the rest of the way fast, went down on one knee in front of me, and put both hands into my basket. Both hands, head down, blade on the ground beside him. And behind him, the other 2 were not watching me at all. They were watching the basket because there might be something in it that changes their year. I stepped in and threw the pointed fist, right fist across from right to left with the thumb driven forward, left fist across from left to right hand back, alternating fast, straight down into him. Bang, bang, bang. The third one made a different sound. The last strike took him off his knees and put him on his back 3 paces away, and he did not get up, and what came out of him afterward was not words. Kill him, he was trying to say. Kill him, kill him. There was a full second where the other 2 just stood there with their mouths open. Then they came, one from the front and one from behind, both blades up. And this is the part I had prepared for, which I want credit for, because I prepared for it 3 days earlier while packing to go up a mountain to look for mushrooms. I held my breath, watched the one coming at me from the front, and threw a small cloth bag underarm. He did the thing you do. He cut it. The bag came apart in the air and put every gram of the lime powder inside it directly into his face. He got out about half a syllable, and then he was on his knees with both hands over his eyes, and he was out of the fight, and he did not know it yet. I turned and got my machete up in time to stop the blade coming down behind me. Clang, sparks came off it, and then I was in real trouble, because I do not know how to use a blade, not a single form, not 1 hour of instruction. I was holding a farm tool in both hands and stopping a man who did this professionally, on pure strength, and I was losing ground every exchange, and every part of my body was telling me that the next one was going to get through, and the machete was making it worse. It was in my hands. It was taking my hands away from the only thing I actually know how to do, so I threw it at him. His eyelids jumped, and he stepped aside and let it go past. Then he saw the empty hands, and he smiled, and he brought the long knife around at my neck. I went under it. Left arm and right arm converged, and I put the bone-piercing palm into the middle of his chest. He came off his feet and went 2 or 3 meters backward down the path and landed hard, and after that he was not part of what happened next. I had used everything from the first move, everything I had, because I had assumed all 3 of them were martial artists. Standing there with my hands still up, I understood that they were not. They were 3 men with knives, and I had been fighting them the way you fight something that can fight back. The last one had got his eyes clear. He was up, bloodshot, glaring, absolutely ready to settle it with me, and then he looked past me at his 2 companions on the ground, and every part of him let go at once. "Escape," he said. "Escape." He still had the blade in his hand. It had stopped being a weapon and become a thing he was carrying while he ran. He got 4 steps. I went after him the way something goes after prey, and the chop palm came down and forward into the back of his neck. He did not make any sound at all. He went off his feet like a kite with the string cut and came down on the path and did not move. Who? I got about 2 more steps and then sat down on the ground. My heart was going like something inside my chest was trying to get out through the ribs. My arms had gone heavy and stupid. I was more tired than I have ever been from any amount of training, and the whole thing, start to finish, had lasted about 10 breaths. 10 breaths. I sat in the middle of that lane and looked at what was in it, and my scalp went cold and tight. "You brought this on yourselves," I said, which was true. It was completely, factually true. If you had just let me go, none of this would have happened. One thing about that moment, and I will only say it once, I had known this was coming. From the first week of the long arm fist I had known. This world kills people, and I was learning to fight, and there is only one place that road goes, and I was not naive about it. I had run it in my head more than once. I had decided in advance how I would feel, and when it actually happened, my mind went completely blank, and I did not know what to do with my hands. It took me a long time to stand up. Then I picked up one of the fallen blades, and I went and did the rest of it because 2 of them were still alive, and one of them was awake enough to ask me not to. I did not answer him. He deserved to die, I thought afterward, standing there with the blade hanging down out of my hand. If I had not trained the way I trained, I would be the one lying in this road right now. Then I threw the blade into the dirt. In this world, the strong take from the weak. That is not a philosophy, it is the operating condition. And when you meet somebody who has decided to kill you, You finish it completely, and you do not leave him any way back, because he will use it. Then I searched them, because I was not going to leave money in a road. The 3 bandits had nothing, not 1 coin between them, not a single thing worth carrying. Poor bastards, I thought. No wonder they resorted to robbery. That is not sympathy. It is that I stood there in the cold and understood exactly how 3 men end up on a mountain path deciding that the next person to walk past is a source of income. And I had been about 9 months away from that myself, on a street in a market, with 19 copper in my hand. The difference between me and them is that a carriage stopped. Then I went to the man they had killed. Good clothes, good boots, somebody's son, somebody's husband, on a road he had every right to be on. 4 or 5 taels of silver on him. And then, inside his coat, against his chest, a folded stack of paper. Silver notes. I did a rough count and stopped counting, because the number was not real. Let us get out of here first. I put the notes inside my own clothes, picked up my basket, took my machete back out of the dirt, and left fast, because I needed to be gone before anybody else came down that lane. 3 dead bandits and 1 dead traveler, and a 15-year-old standing in the middle of it with a full purse. And even if I walked into the yamen and told them the entire truth exactly as it happened, the constables would not necessarily believe me, and more to the point, an unsolved killing on a road is a problem for somebody at that yamen, and I would be a very convenient solution to it. I was never going to put my life in somebody else's hands. Not once, not for any reason. I washed in a stream several li away, washed the clothes too, and put them back on wet, and walked the rest of the way in the wind, which at skin refining is unpleasant and not dangerous. It was fully dark by the time I came in through the sect gate. The disciple on duty did not notice that everything I was wearing was soaked. I got back to my room, closed the door, and washed properly, and stood there for a while with my hands on the edge of the basin until my heart came all the way down. And then I sat on the bed and did the after-action review, because that is who I am, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. I am much stronger than an ordinary man. Today established that. I fought 3 men with knives, bare-handed, and I am the one sitting on a bed. But I cannot be careless. If there had been 5 of them instead of 3, or if they had been ready for me instead of relaxed and greedy, it might well be me lying in that lane. And the lime powder. I made that decision 3 days ago, standing in my room, thinking about the fact that a mountain is not a courtyard, that 1 bag did half the work. Without it, that fight is genuinely dangerous, and I come home injured at best. And they had no defense against me. None. No armor, no training, no idea what was in front of them. Take any of that away, and the whole thing changes shape. Conclusion, and I did not like it. I am not strong enough, because look at the actual sequence. I got surrounded, and my only correct move was to put my money on the ground and beg. That is what my current strength bought me. If I had been able to end all 3 of them the moment I saw them, I would never have had to say 1 word. And here is the part that I keep coming back to. I did beg. I lowered my head and I offered them everything I had, and I made myself as small and harmless as I could. And they decided to kill me anyway. That is the law of the jungle, fully demonstrated on an afternoon in the woods, for free. Only by becoming stronger can a man face any of this with composure. Then I stopped thinking about it and took the notes out. 50s and 20s. I counted them twice, and the second time, my hands were steadier. 175 taels. I said it out loud in an empty room, plus the 8 and change I still had from the West Market. 183 taels of silver. For scale, this is 50 months of my allowance. This is more money than Feng Ji's family has seen across 3 generations. This is enough Changjin powder to run me at 1% a day for a very long time. And there is a version of this story where I feel bad about that money, and I have thought about it, and I do not. It was not going home to that man's family either way. It was going into the coat of whoever came down that lane next. So, new plan. I stay inside the walls of the Cangyun Sect, and I cultivate until this money is gone. I push physician to tier 2 because tier 2 is where I expect the qualitative change, and at that point I should be able to learn medicine preparation and wound treatment from physician Shu instead of memorizing catalogs. And one more thing, which was new, and which came directly out of a lane in the woods. I need a weapon. A weapon is an enormous advantage over bare hands, and I had just spent 10 breaths proving it in the wrong direction. If a cultivator at my own realm came at me with a blade, I could not parry him. I know that because I could barely parry a man with no cultivation at all, and skin refining only protects you so far. Tough skin is tough skin. A sharp enough edge goes through it. It would be great, I thought, staring at the ceiling, if I could make weapons from my previous life. I thought about that for about 4 seconds and then let it go, because I am a physician's apprentice with a fist art, not an industrial revolution. Name: Huo Ming. Occupation: physician. Tier 1, 48%. Life expectancy: 15 out of 70. Realm: body tempering realm. Tendon transforming, martial skill, long arm fist. Tier 3, 45%, a bit over a month to bone forging. Tomorrow, I said, I go to the skill transmission hall. The skill transmission hall stands about 100 meters to the right of the sect's main assembly hall, and it is designed to make you feel small, and it works. 2 stone lions at the entrance, and the main door itself is dark gray and forged out of solid iron. Above it hangs a plaque, black characters on a yellow ground, 3 of them in that sweeping dragon and phoenix hand. Skill transmission hall. Through the door and 20 meters along a corridor, and then you are standing at the foot of a 5-story tower built out of granite with iron bars set into every window. I looked at those bars for a while. You are not getting in through a window, not with an advanced light body art, not with anything. There is one door, and there is a man sitting at it. I had seen this tower from a distance on the day I arrived, and it had astonished me then. Standing at the bottom of it, I felt about as significant as a nail. There was a wooden table at the entrance with an old man behind it, ruddy-faced, drinking tea without hurrying about it. Every disciple who went past put an identity token in front of him and waited to be waved through. I took a breath and handed mine over. His eyes narrowed at it. A medicine refining hall apprentice? He looked up. You are a medicine refining hall apprentice. What are you doing here? Yes, senior. This disciple is a medicine refining hall apprentice, but also an outer sect disciple. So I would also like to learn a martial art for self-defense. You are not properly studying medicine and refining pills, and yet you come here to learn martial arts? He put the cup down. Both studying medicine and practicing martial arts require a great deal of time. Can you manage both? This disciple primarily studies medicine. I kept my face completely serious. It is just that sometimes I need to relax, so I thought I would come and see whether there is a suitable art to practice in my downtime, to relieve stress, strengthen the body, and prolong life. He considered me. Then go on in and have a look. He was not being obstructive, incidentally. I worked that out later. He saw a 15-year-old trying to do 2 enormous things at once, and he was worried I would fail at both and come out the other end at 25 with no medicine, no martial art, and no youth left either. Inside, there were 7 or 8 bookshelves and a few dozen secret manuals scattered across them, which is not many, and which is, for a school out by a county town, apparently quite good. Everything on those shelves had been collected over decades from all over the place, plus a few contributed by disciples, and the sect does not take those for free either. You hand in a manual, you either pick a comparable one off the shelf, or you take money or elixirs for it. I picked one up and immediately noticed the trick. There are no moves in these manuals, no cultivation method, nothing usable. What you get is the name of the art, the names of its techniques, and an honest introduction to its strengths and weaknesses. It is a catalog. You only get the real manual once you have chosen. So I started walking the shelves. And over the next 4 hours, I did not behave like a man executing a plan. I behaved like a boy in a shop. I picked up sword arts. I picked up knife arts. I read the descriptions of things that let you move faster than the eye follows, and things that let you take a hit from a horse, and I wanted all of them, every single one, in the way that you want everything on a menu when you are hungry. There was one in particular called the Wind-Chasing Sword. Cultivate it to major achievement, and the strikes come out so fast that people watching cannot see the sword, only the result. I stood there holding the Wind-Chasing Sword for a long time. The light through the barred windows went orange, and then it went low, and I was still there, and I had been through most of the shelf. And then I picked one up and looked at the name, and my entire body went cold and then hot. Shadowless Needle. I took a breath. I brushed the dust off the cover, and I read the introduction very slowly. A hidden weapon art. Cultivate it to major achievement, and you can kill from dozens of meters away, unseen, and the man dies without ever finding out that anything happened. Is this, I thought, standing in a stone tower in a world with no gunpowder, a handgun, and a silenced one? I stood there grinning at a book like a lunatic, already picturing myself waving a hand across a room and men going down. Then I made myself sit down inside my own head and check it, because wanting a thing is not a reason. 1. I have a proficiency panel, which means mastering any art is not a question of talent, it is a question of hours, and I have hours. And the panel does not just count, it hands back insight, which takes whatever I train past what the manual alone would give me. 2. And this is the part that made the decision. The Shadowless Needle runs on wrist strength. Wrist strength. The single most important thing in the long arm fist. The very first thing Deacon Joe taught 50 children in a yard before a single punch. Flexible wrists. Shake the wrist, swing the wrist, soft to hard. I have been doing wrist conditioning every day for 8 months, and my long arm fist is at tier 3. I did not put the manual down. I walked straight to the entrance with it. The old man was resting with his eyes closed. The moment the manual touched the table, his eyes opened and went over me. I have been looked at by a lot of people in this world. That look went through me like a knife going through cloth, and I felt every hair on my arms stand up. I got respectful extremely quickly. He took the look off me almost at once, which I appreciated. You made this old man wait a long time. His tone was not friendly. I want to see what manual you chose. Which was fair. He could have gone home at 5. It was past 6. Apparently, a normal disciple takes between 10 minutes and an hour to choose, and most of them are gone before 5, and I had walked in after lunch and spent an entire afternoon in there, like a man choosing a wife. He picked it up. Shadowless needle. His eyes widened a little. Did you not say you were looking for a technique to relax with? Is this a technique for relaxing? Now, the reason that manual was on the shelf at all. Cangyun found it years ago when they wiped out a bandit group in the bandits' own lair. A few disciples tried it after that, practiced it for a while, and reported back that the power was pitiful, like tickling somebody was the phrase. So nobody learned it, and it went onto the shelf, and it sat there, which tells you everything about how the people here evaluate a weapon. They tried throwing a needle. It did not knock a man over. They put it down. Nobody in this world has ever seen what a small thing moving fast does when it arrives somewhere specific and unexpected. Senior, I said. I am a medicine refining hall apprentice. I handle silver needles anyway. When I want to relax, I can practice with silver needles for fun. I said it with a completely straight face. Did you not say earlier that you wanted to prolong your life? He was not letting go. This technique does not have that effect. I know there is a 5-animal longevity fist in there that does. He was trying to help me. He was genuinely trying to steer a 15-year-old toward the healthy option. Senior, this disciple's mind is made up. I have decided to choose this one. He stopped arguing. He looked at me for a moment with an expression I could not identify and have thought about since. Wait. And then he was not in front of me anymore. I actually flinched. There had been an old man behind a table, and then there was a table. By the time I had finished being startled, he was already back in his chair with the real manual in his hands. Register it. I registered it honestly, wrote everything down, and handed it back respectfully. 10 taels of silver. Here. I gave him a 20-tael note without blinking, which 2 weeks earlier would have been physically impossible for me. Then I put the manual inside my clothes and held it there with one arm the entire way home. For the record, I had checked the terms before I ever walked over there. Outer Sect disciples pay for anything beyond the standard art. The price varies by how strong the art is, and all of it is far cheaper than what you would pay outside. And if you learn it and hand the manual back, you get a tael or 2 returned. And if you are lucky enough to be taken as the personal disciple of a hall master or an elder, you learn most of that tower for nothing, and possibly things that are not in that tower at all. I filed that last one away. I had just got back to my room and was reaching for the manual when somebody knocked. I put it under my pillow first, then opened the door. You are back. You look well. Feng Ji scratched the back of his head, embarrassed, but he did look well. He looked better than well. He was lit up. Brother Ming, where were you today? I looked for you several times and you were not here. I just saw your light on, so I came over. Then he brightened even further. By the way, I brought you some cured bacon from home. Please have some. He went next door to get it before I could say anything. Then I have to try it, I said when he came back. I have not eaten. Let us eat together. And over the bacon, Feng Jie told me about the best 2 weeks of his life. He had gone home. He had told his parents he was an Outer Sect disciple of the Cangyun Sect and handed over his monthly allowance in silver. And he had become the talk of the entire village. Strictly speaking, the villagers did not find out from him. His mother told them. Which is what mothers do in every world I have lived in. The moment a child achieves anything at all, the parents cannot wait to get it out of the house and into the street, because the son's success is the parent's face, and the envious looks are a private pleasure you get to keep. So when Feng Ji came home for New Year, the whole village came to look at him, and their eyes were full of suspicion. Because a village knows exactly what a village boy is worth, and a village boy who went away and came back saying he is a martial disciple of a famous sect is a story that villages have heard before from boys who were lying, so they asked him to prove it. And Feng Jie, who is not a show-off, who is genuinely the most straightforward person I have ever met, stood up in front of everybody and threw the long-arm fist and put 4 or 5 of the village lads on the ground without any real effort. And then his mother produced his identity plaque and handed it to the one old scholar in the village who can read, and the old scholar read it out. Outer Sect disciple, Feng Ji. Nobody doubted him after that. For the next 10 days, everywhere he went in that village, people looked at him with admiration and envy and said things to him that were not entirely sincere, and at first it made him uncomfortable, and after enough of it, he got a little carried away. Matchmakers came to the house about him. His mother politely declined all of them, which I suspect means she has decided that village girls are no longer good enough for her son. And I want to defend him here, because it would be easy to make him small. He has not become arrogant. He has not become conceited. He is a teenager who cannot keep a straight face when people praise him, and the joy of it just goes straight onto his features and stays there. He told me all of it with the bacon in his hand, and I frowned. I smoothed my face out within about a second, and he did not notice because he was in the middle of a story. But I frowned. Because being a Cangyun Sect disciple is not a thing you advertise. The Cangyun Sect is one of the strongest forces in this area. That is the good part. The other half of that sentence is that a 100-year-old sect that goes out and clears bandits off roads has made a great many enemies, and those enemies are not going to come at the sect. They will come at a disciple, or at a disciple's family, in a village at the foot of a mountain, where everybody now knows exactly which house it is. And I sat there and looked at my friend, who had just done the sweetest and most understandable thing a poor kid can do, which is to go home and let his parents be proud of him in public. And it was already done. It had been done 10 days ago in front of the entire village, and there is no way to take it back, so I did not say anything. I have thought about that decision a great deal since. The next morning was bright, and there was thin mist over everything, and the cold wind came through the trees carrying the smell of leaves going back into the ground. I finished the long arm fist in my usual clearing, sat down for a while, and then took out a box of silver needles I had bought from the medicine refining hall. 20 of them. They look small, and they are not small. There is a tip, a body, and a tail, and the tail is wrapped in wire in a spiral so that it does not turn in your fingers. The manual describes 6 different ways to launch one. I started with the simplest. Grip the needle between the index and middle fingers, flick the wrist downward. When the arm comes parallel to the ground, open the fingers. Whoosh! It went into a tree trunk and stood there with the tail still vibrating. I looked at that for a moment, then I got out the dartboard. Yes, I made a dartboard. Cork, oversized, and I built it based on a bar game from my previous life that I was mediocre at, and I nailed it to the tree. There is a very practical reason. I had not formally registered the art with the sect yet, and a box of 20 needles cost 200 copper. If I stood in a wood and threw needles at tree trunks and small objects, I would spend the next hour on my knees in dead leaves, and I would still lose half of them permanently. The dartboard is enormous and easy to hit, and every needle comes back. I stood 8 paces off and started throwing, using the finger press style, and I was not aiming at anything in particular. Hitting the board at all was the entire requirement, because I do not need accuracy yet. Accuracy is what the panel gives me. I need repetitions, 2 hours of that. Both my arm and my wrist went from working to sore to actively complaining, and my throws were getting weaker. And then it landed. Insight, arriving the way it always does. Not as a thought, but as a correction. My throwing hand adjusted itself in the middle of a motion without asking me, and the next needle came out easier and cleaner and faster than any of the 200 before it. I brought up the panel. Shadowless needle. Tier 1, 1%. There it is, and the rest of it I already know how to do. While I was standing in a wood throwing needles at a board, the war in the medicine hall library had gone somewhere genuinely sad. Zhou Li and Zhou Sheng had stopped speaking entirely, not fighting. That would have been better. They simply treated each other as strangers in a room the size of a large cupboard, 6 hours a day, in complete silence broken only by pages turning. 2 men who used to tell each other everything. Zhou Li did not go home for New Year at all. He stayed, holding a grudge like a coal in his hand, and memorized medical books through the entire holiday. Zhou Sheng went back to Pangan County the day after the celebration. His home is in Rich Lane, in the West District, and Rich Lane is the poorest lane in Pangan County. It got that name from a poor scholar who once lived there and was firmly of the opinion that he was destined for wealth and that this alley was where his fortune would begin. He died in it. Zhou Sheng stayed home 2 days and then hurried back to the sect, and when he came back, his face had changed. He walked like a man who had already won, because Zhou Sheng had come into some money over the new year, and Zhou Sheng had started stealing. Not much. Every 2 days he took 1 calming and brain-boosting pill out of the medicine hall stock, and the pills work. That is the terrible part. After 1, his head went cool and clear, his energy came up, he memorized at twice his normal rate, and he slept better than he had in months. He had gone straight past Zhou Li and left him behind. He would sit in that library and look across at Zhou Li still grinding away with his ruined eyes, and something like contempt would flicker across his face, followed by a small mocking smile that he would put away before anybody saw it. I really wish the assessment would start now, he kept thinking, because as far as Zhou Sheng could see, the field was clear. Zhou Li was finished. And as for senior brother Lin, nobody had laid eyes on him in weeks, and he had handed back the assigned book with his own hands. 2 weeks left. Just 2 more weeks of persistence. 2 weeks went by. The morning of the assessment, the sky was completely clear and blue, and the sun was warm for the first time that year, and there were a few white clouds moving across it like sails a long way out. I walked to the medicine refining hall and brought up the panel on the way. Name, Huo Ming. Occupation, physician. Tier 1, 82%. Life expectancy, 15 out of 70. Realm, Body tempering realm, tendon transforming, martial skills, long arm fist, tier 3, 64%, shadowless needle, tier 1, 10%. Physician was close to breaking into tier 2. The long arm fist was about a month from taking me to bone forging, and from everything I had been able to work out of every disciple who came into the outer sect at the same time as me, not one had reached tendon transforming yet. I had not put much into the shadowless needle in those 2 weeks. Only in the gaps, only when I wanted to stop reading. There was no urgency. I had not left the walls of the sect once since I came down that mountain. Everything else had gone into the long arm fist and the physician track. 2 hours of the long arm fist in the morning, then medical books. After lunch, 2 more hours of books, then a portion of Cangyun powder and more long arm fist. In the evening, an oil lamp and books in a dim room until my eyes gave out. A more regular and more relentless schedule than a 996 office worker in my previous life, with no days off at all. And I was not bored and I was not tired. That is the part I still find strange. In my old life, I would come home from a desk job and go horizontal on the bed and not get up again. Since I started the long arm fist, I have had energy coming out of me. Drag and vigor, they would say here. I sleep less and do more and want to do more than I do. Put that together with numbers that visibly climb and you get a sense of accomplishment that is frankly chemical. I had started fantasizing about going somewhere, not staying in a mountain sect for 40 years, going out and seeing what the rest of this world has in it. The other 2 were already in the courtyard when I got there, standing on opposite sides of it, not speaking. They both greeted me and I nodded back. Zhou Li looked nervous and slightly sick. Zhou Xing looked excited and could not stand still, like a man who has been made to wait outside a door he already has the key to. Physician Shu came in wearing a blue robe. Greetings, Physician Shu. 3 bows. Good. You are all here. Prepare for the assessment. He pointed at Zhou Li. You will go one by one. You can start first. Zhou Li followed him into the room with the face of a man walking into a river, about as long as it takes to drink a cup of tea, and he came back out, pale, sweat on his forehead. Nobody said anything to him. Next. Physician Shu's voice from inside the room, old and gentle. Senior Brother Lin. Zhou Sheng's voice was pitched high and pleasant. I wonder if you would like to go first, or shall I? You go first. I said it flatly, and it was not indifference. If I went first, Zhou Sheng would not get a chance to perform at all. I had not even reached tier 2 of the physician track, and every herb in those books, every property, every meridian, every combination was sitting in my head like something carved into the wall. Then I shall do as Senior Brother Lin says. He straightened his clothes before he walked in, actually adjusted his collar. He had been rehearsing this. He was in there a lot longer than Zhou Li, and when he came out, he looked across the courtyard at Zhou Li and smiled. Small, pleasant, with something in it. Zhou Li pressed his lips together and did not say a word, and both his hands closed into fists at his sides and shook. Next, I went in. Physician Shu was sitting behind a dark red Zaitan wood table with his eyes half closed, drinking tea. When I came in, he put the cup down on his right. The table in front of him was covered in medicinal herbs, laid out in rows. Now, before we do this, you need to know exactly what was in that old man's head, because I found it out later, and it is the best part. Physician Shu lives in the medicine refining hall, in one of the small private courtyards they keep for physicians. He walks past that library most days. He goes into it regularly to look things up, and in 3 months he had seen Zhou Sheng in there, and he had seen Zhou Li in there, and he had never once, not a single time, seen me. So he had concluded that I was not interested in medicine at all. That I was a boy who had been pushed into an apprenticeship by a senior brother and was going through the motions to avoid trouble and would drift out of it eventually. He had expected me not to show up today. I showed up. So he had decided to be kind about it. Give the boy a simple assessment. Let him find out quickly that he was out of his depth and let him retreat with his dignity. Disciple Huo Ming greets Physician Shu. Sit. Neither warm nor cold. I sat. Tell me in detail about the functions, medicinal properties, and other relevant knowledge of Forsythia suspensa. Forsythia suspensa is a commonly used medicine for clearing heat and detoxifying. Its nature is bitter and slightly cold, and it enters the heart and lung meridians. It clears heat and detoxifies, dispels carbuncles and resolves stagnation, and dispels wind heat. It both clears heart fire and dispels carbuncles, which is why it is known as the sacred medicine for sores, small paws. What about Fritillaria thunbergi? Fritillaria thunbergi has many aliases: Shangbei, Zhejiang fritillaria. It also belongs to the category that clears heat and resolves phlegm and disperses stagnation and carbuncles. Its taste is bitter, its nature is cold, and it enters the heart and lung meridians. It can be combined with Dahurian angelica and with mulberry leaves. Simicifuga. Also known as Longyan root, it tastes pungent and slightly sweet. Its nature is slightly cold, and it enters the lung, spleen, and stomach meridians. Its main effects are to release the exterior and promote eruption, to clear heat and detoxify, and to raise yang qi. It is primarily used for qi deficiency, leading to prolapse, for organ prolapse, and for uterine bleeding. And the eyes behind that table came open a little wider. He did not say anything about it. He just asked the next one, and the next one was harder. Tell me about Adzuki bean, Rhamania root, and Ligustrum lucidum, I told him. Then he reached out and picked several herbs off the table and set them apart from the others. These, their names, their medicinal properties, and their effects. These are perilla leaf, rhodiola, and Schisandra chinensis. Respectively, they invigorate qi and activate blood, unblock the meridians, and relieve asthma, and benefit qi and generate essence. The questions got harder, and then they got faster. He started putting two nearly identical herbs side by side and asking me to name both and separate their effects. He started asking about things that are barely used, the ones you find in one prescription in 100, and then he started asking about herbs that were not in the books he gave us. Every time, I answered immediately. At some point in there, my mouth had gone completely dry, and there was sweat coming out along my hairline, and it was not nerves. It was that my head was doing something it had never had to do before, pulling that volume of information at that speed, and it was starting to feel like a physical load. And I noticed something through all of it, and it is the thing I liked most about that hour. He was sweating too, because Physician Shu was not reading from a list. He was pulling every single one of those herbs out of his own memory in order to check my answer against it. 60 years of practice being made to run at full speed by a 15-year-old across a table. An hour. An entire hour before he stopped and reached over and drank off the rest of the tea in one go, and the tea had gone cold a long time ago, and he did not appear to notice. And his face had changed completely. The calm was gone. What was on it now was a kind of feverish excitement, and his eyes were fixed on me the way a man looks at a rough stone that he has just realized has jade in it. He cleared his throat. Have you memorized these medical books before? No, Physician Shu. This disciple began memorizing them the day you gave them to us. Oh? Half a smile. But some of the herbs I just asked about are not in the books I gave you. I finished memorizing the books you gave me within a month, I said. For the remaining time, I took other medical books from the library and read those. He went very still. Then how many kinds of medicinal herbs have you memorized now? I thought about it because I wanted to be accurate. The medical books you gave me recorded 1,357 kinds. Adding the ones I read myself, there are a total of 4,542. His right hand came down flat on the table hard enough to make the herbs jump. Good, good, good. He was already standing up. From now on, you are my assistant. Tomorrow, come to my dispensary and I will teach you how to prepare medicine and how to treat illnesses and injuries. His voice had climbed a full step. At the same time, you will be responsible for organizing the medicinal herbs, categorizing them by age and by efficacy, and processing them. Understood, Physician Shu. I have been in this world long enough now to keep my face still. I did not manage it. He got the whole thing. Here is what that hour had done to that old man. He had come into that room intending to pick between Zhou Sheng and Zhou Li, and Zhou Sheng's performance had barely, only barely, met his requirements. And in 60 years of practicing medicine, he had never once met anybody who memorized over 4,000 medicinal herbs in 3 months. Not a prodigy, not a scholar, not a colleague, nobody. He had wanted to pass what he knew to his son and then to his grandson, and neither of them was any good. They fall asleep looking at a medical book. He has spent years sighing about it to anybody who would listen, that his medicine has no successor and will go into the ground with him. And now he was standing in a small room looking at a 15-year-old former beggar with the entire pharmacopoeia in his head. Physician Shu has had an idea. I do not yet know what the idea is. I intend to find out. Let us go, he said. Let us head out together. And that is how the year ended for me. I want you to hold 2 pictures next to each other, because I do. In the first one, a 13-year-old is sitting in a corner of the West Market in Cangyun County in late autumn with the temperature going down, and a man is taking 19 copper coins out of his hand 1 finger at a time without ever once looking at his face, and that boy has just been turned down for a job carrying dishes. In the second one, that boy walks out of a room in the medicine refining hall of the Cangyun Sect next to an old physician who is talking to him too fast and too excitedly to finish his sentences, past 2 grown men in a courtyard who have just been informed that the race is over. Same boy, 20 months, no talent, no bloodline, no master who took pity on him, no mysterious old man in a ring, just a machine that counts, and a person willing to feed it every single day. And Deacon Joe, wherever he was that afternoon, has still never found out that the thing he said to me to soften the blow, the kind little consolation prize he offered a hopeless boy so that the boy would have somewhere to go when martial arts failed him, was the door. You could become an apprentice at the medicine hall. Thank you, Deacon Joe. Sincerely, it worked out. 2 things followed me out of that courtyard though, and I am not going to pretend they did not. The first is that Physician Shu looked at me for 1 hour and decided something about the rest of my life, and did not tell me what it was. Being noticed is not the same as being safe. I have spent 2 years being extremely careful not to be interesting, and I broke that in a single afternoon over herbs because I could not resist showing an old man what I could do. And the second one is heavier. Somewhere at the foot of a mountain, there is a village where every single person now knows that the boy from that house is a disciple of the Cangyun Sect. His mother made sure of it. He knocked down 5 of their sons in the yard to prove it, and he was so happy about it that he brought me bacon. Nobody in that village means him any harm, but this world does not need anybody to mean it. I am going to have to get strong faster than I planned.